Good morning and happy Monday. You have dialed in to the correct radio station. This is Breaking Change, a podcast production. Hello. Back home, back in the saddle. I'm back in my the Searles HQ1 studios. Little out of practice. Been a few weeks, I know. But hopefully the audio quality is a little better. You know, did a couple episodes from Japan. If they were overly Japanesey, I apologize. It was what was going on. The DJI Mic Mini 2, which for being the size of like four chiclets, like a really big chiclet, if you know, like that gum. Is that, I don't know if it's an international variety of tasteless, no good gum, but if they're tiny is my point. And for that size, they do surprisingly well. They sound pretty good. But there's some echo. It's not quite as enjoyable to listen to for long stretches. So hello, hi, back in the saddle, back with my, speaking of microphones, I'm always afraid of pronouncing this one wrong. The Shure SM7B, the one that makes me look like a League of Legends streamer, which I guess at this point is an outdated reference. I guess people still play League. I don't. I don't have time for multiplayer games. Talking to other people, dealing with randos, like I get enough of that. Even when I try to avoid humans. Let's see. So, how many of these have we done? Every one of these, we got to come up with a new major release, a major version number, indicating a breaking change. Breaking change means something new happened that is different from the old. And I will say version 39 of the program. Title it Broken Home. Because I came back from Japan to a broken home because all my shit was broken. And we'll get into that in a moment. First, just to clear the deck, I guess, on all the Japan stuff. After I got into contract, so after we last spoke, I began a series of trips to all of the remaining prefectures I had not yet been to. So last we spoke, I believe I was in Nara Prefecture, which of course I've been to many, many times, but I was about to go off on quite the adventure. I took the train to the lowest population prefecture. Of course, not to say you're scraping the bottom of the barrel, but like there's a reason I hadn't been to these last seven or so. The lowest population prefecture, Saga, in northwest Kyushu, which is, Kyushu means 9 states. There's, I guess, 9 prefectures in Kyushu. Although I think if you were to count them, there are fewer these days. In any case, go to Saga. There's a famous comedian who had a song who got famous as like a TV celebrity with a song that was basically like, there's nothing in Saga. So I went and I verified for myself that indeed he was spot on. I had a good bowl of curry. got out of Dodge quickly. I didn't have time. I didn't want to make it like if you go there for 3 days and you've got a car, there's stuff you can do. There's a really cool pine forest. I don't want to, if you're from Saga, I don't want to, belittle your already frequently shat on, there's nothing to do there prefecture. I worked my way down to Nagasaki, stayed overnight in Nagasaki, and had some good fish, really good fish. Went to a restaurant where I was trying to read the kanji of the fish on the menu, and I was like, I don't know how to say that. And I asked the waitress, and she didn't know how to say that. And then she asked the chef, and he didn't know how to pronounce it, which was concerning. Maybe he was a prep chef or something. They got another staff member, and then they were able to pronounce it. The couple next to me, older couple, who presumably had to learn to read and write with pens and paper. They didn't know how to pronounce it. So it was very validating for me. Anyway, got from Nagasaki, I took the train down to Kagoshima. Spent another night in Kagoshima. Good food, good shochu. Kagoshima is famous for shochu. All of Kyushu kind of is, but especially Kagoshima. So from there, the plan was to hit the next of the unvisited prefectures. There's Miyazaki. So if you have Wagyu in Japan, in America, at a steakhouse, if they have like imported genuine Japanese Wagyu, I think Miyazaki Gyu might be the most imported. So maybe you've tasted their beef. Within Japan, it's like it's mid. hence the need to export it, I guess. Miyazaki has a lot going for it, but the train to get there is a little fraught. There's an express that you can get from Kagoshima to Miyazaki. They're close as the crow flies, and if you're used to taking the Shinkansen, it's like that should be nothing. But there's no Shinkansen track between the two cities, and so it's a bit of an ordeal. You know, you book. It's an old timey kind of charm, the train, and I booked, and it was a random time of day. I was the only person in my train car, which was weird. And it was I was chasing a storm. I was trying to get out of the city before this storm overtook Kagoshima, and they had like record-breaking flood that night actually. But the train was too slow, and about halfway through, right between in a valley between two long stretches of tunnel, because Japan's so mountainous, if you are claustrophobic and you're on a train, it's fortunate the trains are so fast, because like very often it's just you in a tunnel in the middle of a fucking mountain. Right between two mountains, all of a sudden train comes to a halt, and then the power goes out. And you might think like they're electric trains. They're not steam, right? They're not running on some diesel or compressed natural gas. Like that's what all the wires above the train are. They provide power. I had been on hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of trains in Japan, and it never really occurred to me that like the power flowing to them. You know, of course there's lights on, but there's also like, even when there doesn't feel like there's air conditioning, there's ventilation. There's all these other sounds indicating like, you know, the warm embrace of industry, of things are working here. Something's going on. When the power goes out and it's a rainstorm and it gets dark, and all of a sudden you're looking around and you're like, I'm in a Jurassic Park ass jungle right now. And your train car, like the door didn't open because the electronic doors were also off. So I just had to sit there and hope for the best. You know, I was also the last train car, and behind me, like there was no one in that cabin. So it's like, hopefully, you know, I'm not going to have like some Uncharted 2 experience and it flies off of a cliff at this point. But, you know, I was nestled between the warm embrace of these two mountains. And so I at least I wasn't in a tunnel is what my thought was. But we were there for about, well, it felt like an hour and a half. So it was probably no more than 30 minutes. I think it was about 45 minutes. But eventually, the staff found me, and they, when they realized I could understand Japanese, they were like, "Oh, well, so here's what's up." So that was mildly terrifying. But I got to the station. I pulled into Miyazaki, all of an hour and a half late. Not that I had anywhere to be, and yeah. I made a couple friends on the train after that, because they like just changed the destination. They're like, you know what, this train's fucked. Here, just get off here. You'll figure it out. So I had to work together with some other people who weren't local to figure out how the fuck to get to Miyazaki Station from there. That was cool. I had a good time. Miyazaki's famous for mangoes, and it's June, so mangoes are in season. So I thought I'm gonna go get a mango, and then I remembered. Fruit is expensive, and the cheapest mango I could find was $30, and I just couldn't bring myself to spend $30 on a mango, so I didn't eat the mango. But I did have the chicken. Chicken's really good. And this is kind of how the story goes for each of these prefectures. So I'll skip a few here. From there, I took a flight, two flights, a domestic flight from Miyazaki to Fukuoka to Kochi. Kochi is another very, very rural prefecture, this one in Shikoku, the four-state island. And the notable thing about that trip, other than how lax security is when it's not international, and how nice the plane is, and how, like, I heard 0 words of English. There were a couple whiteys, I want to say, in the terminal, but like no affordance given, like 0 fucks. It was like all Japanese words, and we were there to roll. I guess when you're in rural Japan, they just sort of assume you're at least used to it. Uh, Even JAL's regional jets, every seat was economy, and they were all leather. It was like every seat was as good as a first class, you know, Delta or American or United Embraer Air regional jet, layout. So that was kind of neat. Huh. Anyway, the thing that was notable, I was looking, and there was this plexiglass between the secure zone and the not secure zone, and somebody, a woman, was on my side, the secure side. She'd gone through security, and on the other side was somebody who was like an older woman and a small girl, probably 5 or 6 years old, and they each pick up a telephone and they talk to each other like off the wall, and you realize that Japanese airports, for some reason, have prison phones, and you can actually pick up the phone handle on each side and like look at the other person through the plexiglass and have a conversation through the secure area, which is just befuddling and hilarious. And it might have been useful before cell phones were a thing, but like this mom's, I presume, mother talking to her daughter, being like, "I love you, honey. I'm gonna go now," or whatever, and. But I was just looking at it, and it looked like a visitation to see a prisoner. And, of course, when you are in the secure zone of an airport, you kind of are a prisoner. But just looking at that, I was like, man, there's probably not a ton of those left. So I'm glad I got a glimpse of what that would be like. I really desperately wanted to pick up the line after she was done and just like desperately gesticulate through the window for somebody else to pick up as if I had urgent news. It also made me wonder, in Japanese, when you answer the phone, you don't say hello. First of all, because hello is an English word. But secondly, because they say moshi moshi, which is not a form of greeting. What I've heard, I guess moshi means like if. It's a conditional, like, I don't know, it's a hesitant word. You say that because what I was taught was that the Japanese telephone wire, the gauge was so thin, and it was so the connections were so fraught that people would check in on each other constantly throughout the conversation. So when you're on the phone in Japan, you're expected to say basically like nod along verbally to almost every single clause of every single sentence, so that the speaker knows that they can still be heard. And so moshi moshi kind of means like, hello, Roger, it's like that kind of like walkie-talkie lingo almost. And so since the purpose of saying moshi moshi is to verify a connection, I couldn't help but wonder if when you pick up a prison phone in Japan and you can see the other person and you can see their mouth move, if you still go through the moshi moshi and the because you've got visual confirmation. I bet you do, but I bet that on FaceTime you don't. So I bet you anything that is not internally consistent, which is super fucked. So there you go. Only thing in Kochi that stood out, and this is a little bit weird. This is like at least PG-13 rated, so strap in. But not R rated, so you don't have to worry about strap-ons. It's in between. It's like PG-13 before 1995. Anywho, it's Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, PG-13. In Kochi, one of the most famous things to do, especially if you're a tourist or if you're just visiting, is to go to this place called Hirome Ichiba, which is a cafeteria, big open space, lots of different vendors, small little restaurants inside one big covered space. You go, and it's famous for being kind of open seating. Like, you're expected to sit with strangers. And so my goal was to show up, find some cool looking strangers, get some Japanese practice, and sit with them. And I asked this one family, this one group of salarymen, hey, can I sit with you? I got a beer. And they were like, yeah, sure. And then they like immediately all turned their backs to me, which was fun. So I was like, all right, well, you guys aren't going to do. And so then I kind of, and you feel awkward about this shit, right? Because you like want to pick out a good group. So you don't want to lock eyes with everybody because oh no, you're too old, or not to say I'm profiling, but I'm just very carefully racially profiling and age profiling everyone in the room to like get the kind of language practice experience that I want. Like, I found a group of young salarymen in their probably, yeah, all of them were in their 20s, a couple maybe in their early 30s. So a group of 5 guys, and they had an open seat. I said, hey, can I sit with you? And I realized that how I fucked up with the first group is I just used the very basic phrase, "How, hey, can I sit with you?" And they assumed I was a foreigner who'd been taught that phrase, and that the rest of their evening would be struggling with somebody speaking English. So at the second group, I adjusted my strategy, and I came in hot with like a lot of complicated Japanese spoken rather quickly and fluently. And then they were like, "What? Oh yeah, come on down, let's buy you drinks." And so then they bought me a lot of drinks and got me super drunk over the course of 3 hours, like not blackout shit faced. I don't remember it drunk, but like next morning realizing I said some things that were maybe a little inappropriate, uh, which I'm now currently, as I recount this, feeling a little bit of regret and wondering, why am I saying this into a microphone? Anyway, all to say, the thing in my notes and the thing that was really funny is that they all work in the beef industry and cows. And they were trying to explain to me what their job was. And they're like, well, it's pretty complicated. And I was like, I'm game. You know, I know I really like Japanese beef and stuff. And 2 of them were actually coming to Wisconsin, to Green Bay area on a business trip, and they spoke 0 English. And so I was trying to like encourage them. Hey, here's my text, how to text me online. I'll help you out if you get stuck at the border, especially. I'll write you a little note to explain, what you're doing. Just tell me what you do. And over the course of many drinks in 2 hours, and I'm kind of glad that like we built up to this and it didn't just start off this way. It became clear that they didn't trade cattle, and they didn't do butchering or beef sales. They didn't raise cattle. And so I'm like, by process of elimination, I'm like, so what do you do? And they trade semen. They trade semen. They harvest and trade semen. And when you dig into harvest, they literally use masturbatory tools on cows to help cows along in the process of relinquishing some semen, which that they then package and put into a vial and then, sell. And at one point, because people get drunk, that like, blood pressure changes, shoes get too tight and things, people get uncomfortable physically. This one guy at the table just takes his shoes off, and then takes his socks off, which is an unusual thing in public in Japan, right? Like, the reason we take our shoes off in the house is that the house is clean and the floor is dirty. And here we are in a shoesy place and you're taking your shoes off. Like, you must be pretty drunk. Well, he wasn't pretty drunk. He had been in a workplace injury about a year prior. This was really good language practice, but I don't know how useful all of these vocabulary words I picked up are going to be. Workplace, so you finally find out these guys are jerking off cows and getting paid for it, which, for some people would be just the dream job, I'm sure. Ugh. Sorry. He explained workplace, like as soon as I heard workplace injury and I knew that was the job, I got extra curious. Apparently, these samples are stored in liquid nitrogen to keep them super cold. And he injured himself by spraying the liquid nitrogen on his toes like a year prior. And then another guy shows me his stomach, is like, yeah, and I got sprayed on the stomach. So, and I'm like, well, will this get better? Will you fully heal? And they're like, yeah, maybe. I don't know. Anyway, good to meet you. So I got all their contact info if you want to talk to them. They're cool guys. So yeah, planes, trains, automobiles. Took a bus trip to the biggest whirlpool in the country, and then took a boat out to visit the whirlpool. This is in like Tokushima Prefecture, right near the bridge to Kobe. And so I got to go in a boat and then go circle an oceanic whirlpool. And this is the thing that people do every day 3 times. And it was pretty neat. I don't know. It was really wavy. And the boat was rocking a lot. And one person dropped their phone and it was sliding all over the deck. And that was maybe the most entertaining part of the whole thing. So yeah, I mean, for me, traveling there is just, and everything there is just new game plus. Like I feel like I cleared America. I beat the game in America. I've done all the things I want to do here for the most part, and doing new things here is too easy. So you go there, and then you're like, how the fuck am I going to take a bus from this city that doesn't want me to get to this city and do all the transfers and stuff? And with smartphones, it gets a lot easier. In fact, it kind of like defeats a lot of the fun for me. But yeah, getting to that whirlpool was fairly hard, and then figuring out like now that I'm at the whirlpool, I want to not be here anymore. I want to be very far away. I want to get to Osaka today or Kyoto today, I think it was. And yeah, it was Kyoto. So figuring out how to like take the local bus to the highway bus, because there's no train infrastructure over there, and then figuring out how to buy a ticket on the highway bus, which just has this one janky ass website 20 minutes before it shows up, because you get there and they don't sell tickets at the bus stop. It's all like reserved seating. So that was cool. That was fun. Yeah, I got into Kyoto, which is I wanted to see, is it as overrun with tourists as I feared? And I think the answer is no. I expected it to be even more chaotic, but it's still I would still avoid it. If you're asking my recommendation. All I wanted to do, because I was just staying one night and then I was going to move on to Tokyo. I was staying one night. I just needed a place to stay. And I have a favorite sake bar in Kyoto. It's a very small little bar, just 7 seats maybe. And the owner's really nice, and she's taught me a lot about sake over the just couple of times that I visited. So I wanted to pay them a visit, and I texted in advance, and I went and showed up, and they were all like finishing a fancy sushi dinner, and I realized I was interrupting, but that she'd welcomed me anyway. And she introduced me as, so now this is the vocab lesson part of the program. She introduced me as a joden, like a frequent customer, a regular. Yeah, so basically like translates to a regular. Oh, he's a regular. I'd only been there like once before. And that was very kind, right? To be honored in such a way, because I'm just some Johnny come lately. But found a seat for me. Everyone did introductions around the table, which I thought was interesting. A little bit unusual to do like proper, almost formal introductions of like, this is my name and this is my job and this is where I'm from and so forth. So I did my little thing, explained how weird I was. And one of the dudes there was a chef, and he had just actually finished making them all this really fancy sushi course. And they'd all paid a lot of money for it. That was the evening's thing. That it was actually a closeout, and when you own a bar with 7 seats and you have a lot of regulars, you're just all friends after a certain point. After a certain point, you're the person who owns the place and you're the one pouring the drinks, but like it's just everyone's a friend. And that's why I love small bar culture in Japan, is because yes, you want to visit a lot of places, yes, you want to get a lot of different experiences, but if you're going to come back, beyond a certain point, you just want to pick like a bar and just keep going back to that one so that you can develop relationships with the owner and with the other joden. So yeah, had a good time. The sushi guy, even though he was all done, he was like, I'll make you some sushi. And how many do you want? Like, how hungry are you? And I didn't want to say no, but I didn't want to, put him, like, give him too much work to do. And so we negotiated. I started with 4 and he started with 12, and we worked out to 7. So I had 7 pieces of sushi, and he charged me 100 yen per piece. The person next to me informed me that this is like some of the most expensive sushi in the world. And I believed it. One of them was whale, I found out, as the whale was going in my mouth, which is the second time I've been, what do you call that? Like rickrolled with whale in my mouth. The whale was good. It was very tender. It was way softer than I'd expect, and it wasn't just like fat or blubber either. But yeah, fresh whale. Yeah, we all have feelings about that. Don't get me wrong, but that was a thing in my mouth. Better whale than cow semen, if you had to pick. Yeah, closed out the trip, went to a concert in Tokyo, spent like a week in Tokyo working on Posse Party. I'll talk about that in a little bit, but I was kind of going through a detox, cooking from home, just kind of like having some chill time to myself, staying in one place after way too many hotels and way too many little misadventures at restaurants like that. So went to a concert, and if you go to a concert in Japan, like it's just such a cool cultural experience. It's like going to a baseball game in Japan. It's like because they took it from the West and then they just sort of tweaked it. So you go in and like it's got a start time, and unlike in America, the concert starts at the start time, and no opener. At least in this case, no opener, just starts on time. They go right at it, and then like they very diligently just play every fucking song back to back to back to back with maybe 5 seconds to change between songs. And I don't know like how this guy's voice is still going. So yeah, it was 2.5 hour set. Worked through basically, it was our 15-year anniversary. The band's name is Indigo La End. And you pick out a mid-tier J-pop band like that, like they're compared to, I asked ChatGPT, like compare Indigo La End to English bands, like Western bands. And compared favorably, it mentioned Vampire Weekend, Death Cab for Cutie, The Shins, somebody else. You get the gist, right? Like that kind of vibe. And yeah, went 2.5 hours, and everyone had an assigned seat, but everyone stood while singing happened. And I was in the very back row. It's almost like they could feel the energy that when I bought my ticket on the internet and I had it printed out at 7-Eleven, this guy should get the very, very back row of like this massive theater and the last seat in that last row. So I was I had a good view of all the people. The audio quality was good, but like I had a great view of the people. And one of the things that I noticed immediately is like nobody sits. If singing is happening, it's almost out of respect. We're all standing. And the other thing that's weird, people don't sing along because that would disrupt other people around you. And they don't dance and they don't act disorderly. Instead, everyone just kind of like to the beat at certain segments will move their right arm forward and backward to a rhythm or, to some kind of beat or some kind of tempo, all in unison. And they actually sell little like LED bracelets that light up. And sometimes they light up like in sync with what's going on. And sometimes they're just always on, but like you'll just see, and it's actually, it turned out to be really cool from the back of the room to watch this, because it's just a sea of people in unison all doing the same thing. Additionally, no phones allowed. You're not allowed to be on a smartphone while you're on there. No recording of any kind allowed. No photos, which is a bummer to not have a photo, but also like when you're looking around and you're like, wow, I can actually see what's happening on the stage, which, they could. I was extremely far. These people were little peanuts. Yeah, it was a cool experience. So if you're looking to, escape all the foreigners in Tokyo, just go to a concert where none of the foreigners have heard of that band. Yeah, it was a good time. It was a good way to wrap up. So hit a bar on the way home, went to bed, and then next day I was back in America. Here I am. Hello. Hi. I'm finally back. 2-month trip. It was an ordeal. I mean, I just put you through half an hour of that ordeal right there. So technically you went on a trip. So look at that. Remember, the purpose of this program is to be a voice in your ears while you do the dishes or walk the dog or drive your car or whatever it is that you do. It's not necessarily to edify you or educate you, because that would be work. And this is all about just shutting up the voices in your head that are bumming you out and keeping you busy. So I'm just trying to produce some content, guys. I didn't say it would be good. I got home and I was coming off 2 years prior. I think it was 2 years prior, flood in the bathroom that started just before I got home. And so that was a kind of not traumatic, but it meant that we were as soon as I got home after this long trip, I had all these fans all over the house. And then I knew I'd have to remodel the bathroom, and I did remodel the bathroom. So I came home this time and I was a little bit, braced. And sure enough, before getting back, I learned that the circuit that the fridge was on had been flipped at some point. And unfortunately, Becky she was overseas. She was in Europe visiting friends. And so for up to 2 weeks, the fridge was off, and our freezer just melted because, you keep the air conditioning at a high temperature. So it's in the high 80s for 1, 2 weeks. I don't know. All these berries melt, all the ice melts, and then that just kind of like liquefies all of the melted goods in the freezer into some sort of slurry. And then now there's just this gelatinous berry like goop that smells like acrid, rancid citrus that pooled up all over the floor. The cleaner sent us some pictures, and it literally looked like a murder scene with just this like, you know, goopy red stew all over the floor in front of the fridge. I bet you that was funny for them. I bet you they're like, I really hope I'm not going to open this freezer and find a body. God, they spent 3 hours cleaning that fucking thing out, and I love them for it. And I'm glad that when I got home, I wasn't the one to have to find that at 1 a.m. in the morning when I got back. But still, like, it still smells. It's been a fucking week. That today marks a full goddamn week and a day since I came back, and it still smells. And we've got all the activated charcoal, and we got all the things. I suspect that when the bottom of your fridge just becomes full of rancid goop, it doesn't come out easily. It's going to be there for a while. Hopefully, it's not in the walls. I haven't pulled out the fridge yet myself. I see a picture of them having pulled out the fridge. I trust that they cleaned it, but I'm skeptical. So a new fridge is probably in our future. Of course, that wasn't the only thing to break. Let's see, I got a list. The doorbell had broken, and Becky hadn't noticed that, like, when people were ringing the doorbell, nothing was happening. We had a Logitech Circle Vision Pro, whatever the fuck, HomeKit doorbell. That doorbell is famous, if you check the Reddit, for not operating well when there's sun, which is a problem if you live in the Sunshine State, or just your door is outside, which is a common feature of doors. So that doorbell just decided it was done, and I ended up buying a ring. I was like, you know what? I have a Homebridge to Ring thing, so I can make Ring operate on my HomeKit world. And obviously, bespoke HomeKit hardware like this sucks. It's all low volume, not an innovation sector. So I got the Ring, fanciest Ring doorbell I could, set that up, and it 95% worked, which meant that it didn't work. So I had to get my electrician out, change out the transformer, because I tried to change out the transformer, and the transformer that I bought failed. Figuring out how doorbells work is really dumb. I'm not going to explain it here. Just ask ChatGPT, how does doorbell work? And it'll explain it. But anyway, had to replace that out again. Dishwasher stopped working. We ran it like 6 times and nothing fucking happened. Except that all of your shit just gets more baked on because it's really hot in there. Fixed that. There were weeds absolutely everywhere. Like an impossible number of weeds had appeared over 2 months. So had a firm come out that seals like pavers and driveways and pool decks and whatnot. So I'm at this point just thinking in terms of resiliency. If I'm going to be gone for a few months at a time, like, I can't come home to this level of chaos every single time. So, we're putting in a dedicated circuit just for that, refrigerator, because it was currently shared with some other stuff. And then I'm going to put one of those smart dinguses in front of it that lets me know if the power goes out, so that I can call somebody to come to the house. And, I also switching from battery operated Ring cameras, which are kind of like scattered throughout the outdoor of the house, to instead hardwiring them with power over Ethernet cameras, which is its own project. And I got my guy coming on Wednesday to wire that up. That way we don't have to recharge these fucking batteries every month and a half, 2 months, again, because they will die. Yeah, so that's, it's literally been a week. Becky and I have been up every single day, whether it was like emptying the pantry and like all the food shit that we had to like reset after that accident. And so we're just like, we may as well lean in and kind of get some of these bigger structural to-dos done. There's no better time to pause before you just dive right back into your routine and ask yourself, what would I change if I could? What would I change about where I live? What would I change about my routine, my physical setup, all these assumptions about like, this is what we do at this time of day. This is when we eat dinner. This is when, this is how we like to wind down at the end of the evening. This is, all these norms. The best time to change them is after you've been gone for 2 months, because you're going to have a fresh outside perspective and you're already not in the routine anyway at that moment. So it's not personal. It doesn't feel uncomfortable. It doesn't feel like somebody just changed your shit, or that you got to deal with change on sort of like a visceral level. So when Becky said, hey, I want you to start eating dinner earlier in the day, I was like, I don't fucking care. That doesn't matter to me. Whereas if we'd been eating dinner at the exact same time much later for weeks on end, and she said that, then it would feel more like, well, an adjustment. So we made a bunch of changes like that. It was a really productive week, just getting stuff done. So that's no better. One of the best reasons to leave home for more than a week, if you can swing it, especially if you work remotely. Just leave for the sake of leaving, get some experience somewhere else, and then come back to your house and be like, what the fuck am I doing with my life? But seriously, and then answer the question and then make changes. So yeah, speaking of life, that's life, I guess. So let's move on to follow up. So the number one item in my follow-up list, and it's a sad one. So Father's Day was June 15th. And just incidentally, it was also the 6-month anniversary of my father passing away. And had I been in Japan 10 years prior, the day might have come and gone without me noticing. But Japan has slowly been picking up our holidays and putting their own unique spin on them. Like they have Halloween now, but without trick-or-treating typically. So Mother's Day and Father's Day have become, commercial holidays, just like they are in the West. And you think about it as like, hey, well, that's not your culture. And then you're like, everyone's got fucking fathers, dude. It's cool. I mean, other countries have Children's Day, and we haven't imported that because every fucking day is Children's Day in America, even if you're an adult. I saw a lot of reminders everywhere I went, being like, oh yeah, Father's Day, Father's Day, Father's Day, everywhere that I went over the course of like a week. And so I was thinking about Dad a lot. One thing that I'm really glad for, and this is an argument for having your own fucking website instead of just existing in a social media app and having that be the only evidence that you ever existed, is somebody on the internet searches for my dad now. And the obituary, as summarized and linked from my website, is like first page result. Now that's not like, look, it's not, nothing about this is good. It's not good that he passed away. It's not good that, the first thing people are going to see when they search for him is an obituary, necessarily. But like, that's kind of like the nature of the internet. But it's good because when people who have been, for example, patients of his for 30, 40 years, you only go to the dentist every so often. And so he was careful when he retired. He had enough warning that for like almost a year, but at least 6 months, he had enough warning that he kind of got to say goodbye to each of his patients who were so diligent so as to actually get a cleaning every 6 months. He was able to say goodbye to all of them properly. But even today, a year and a half later, not everyone goes to the dentist that often. So several people are either like, only realizing he retired or have no concept at all. It's like, well, yeah, what happened to him? And so they Google and then they find my website. And because it's a website and not a social media platform, they don't have to be logged in to read it. And because it's a website and not a social media platform, my email fucking address is right there. And so they're emailing me. People who knew my dad, some of them who went to visit my dad for dental work for, since the 70s, have been emailing me over these 6 months. And some of the notes that I've gotten have been really, truly wonderful. So that's nice. I actually got several in the run up to Father's Day from people, just coincidentally. And it's always really one of the things I think about a lot, and I know Dad thought about this to a decent amount, to decent extent, in terms of legacy, is like, will anyone fucking remember me when I was gone, and why? And to his credit, whereas like I will be remembered for giving shitty takes on the internet more than anything else, uh, my dad is remembered for being tremendously kind and patient and helping people through very painful, very scary experiences to the point where they felt like that they had a friend and an advocate to comfort those in pain and to help them solve problems they couldn't solve themselves. So that's a, pretty awesome legacy, and it's cool to see people writing in and just finding it via Google. So I'm really glad that we have that up. And I'm really glad that they're writing in. In general, like, whenever anyone emails me something nice, I always tell them, not in this case, but like in general about my work or whatever. It's like way fewer people write in than you think. In fact, if you know some internet famous person and you email them, the likelihood of a response is extremely high. And I've made a lot of friends with internet famous people by just emailing them out of the blue and saying, hey, I like your work. I want to be your friend. Because forming friendships in adulthood, like as we've discussed, is hard enough as it fucking is. Just announce I will be your friend now, and people will be like, sweet, I could use more of those because I am an American man and I have no friends, statistically. So, yeah, one legacy of Dad's is when he passed away, I finally started taking seriously his advice of brushing my tongue, because every time that he was down in my mouth when I was at his practice, he'd be like, oh, buddy, you got to really start brushing that tongue. A lot of bacteria. Is like, you expect me to work in here with that thing? It's like, you drink a lot of coffee, bud. So I started brushing my tongue. I'm not going to like get up close to the camera now and show you my tongue, because I'm sure I would be very embarrassed of how ugly my mouth is. I'm sure there'd be evidence that I failed to brush my tongue today, but I'm saying in generalities, every time I brush the tongue, I think about him. So that's, kind of like Aaron's puns. That's a form of legacy too. Other follow-up items. We talked about, well, we didn't talk about this because we were so focused on WWDC and the run up to that, but like the in-app purchases, basically it was Yvonne Rodriguez, the judge in the Apple case, said, hey, Apple, go fuck yourselves. You can't charge people for linking out to their website. And so companies like Spotify like had a button that they were ready to press to be like, go buy your Spotify outside the app. And I expected the big apps to go and do that, to have like payment processing handled outside the App Store because they want their 30% back, right? And it's not like setting up Stripe is hard, but I expected smaller apps to take advantage of the fact that the in-app purchase flow is so easy that it's still worth keeping around, right? Software is a zero marginal cost good. And so the difference between making 70 cents on the dollar versus 100 cents on the dollar is an open question in terms of which is better, if like 1.3 times as many people are going to go through the 70 cents rigmarole as would you get kicked out to a website to have to go and do it on Stripe, procedure. So I was surprised when this week I had several instances of download an app, and then instead of having a free trial offered through the App Store, which I was used to, right? Because you do the free trial thing, you do the Face ID, then you go into the subscription manager thing, and then you cancel the free trial so it doesn't ding you. Instead, I got booted out to Stripe immediately with no opportunity to do any in-app purchase. I even looked in the App Store listing, and it says that there's in-app purchases, and I was like, okay, well, it's one of those apps. But you get in, you can't buy it anymore because they've ripped all that shit out. So it's only still there because they've got existing customers that haven't migrated. But if you're a new customer of a lot of apps, you're gonna probably, in the US, I guess if I'd used a VPN, even then, like it would have been US region. I would have had to change my region to get the IAP offering. Maybe I'll start doing that. In any case, yeah, that sucks. I don't know. Like, It's not a big deal. You're just using Stripe checkout instead. And so it's not that it's hard, it's that I like having one place for all of my bullshit apps that are subscription apps. Like I can keep in my head a certain number of subscriptions, but like this is for the app Tessie. It's like a Tesla companion app. And the only feature that I want from this app is to notify us, send a notification when somebody parks the car and then forgets to plug in the charger. Because nothing sucks more than you get into the car the next day and the battery is not sufficient to get you where you're going. And you would think that Tesla would have built this notification in if they have any, their app has a lot of features, but that is not one of them. And so Tessie is one of the, if not the only remaining app that actually implements that decently well. So I wanted to pay for that. But now like there's a little kernel, there's a cluster of neurons in my brain whose responsibility it is to remind me that I've got a Tessie membership that is going to auto renew that I need to cancel if I'm not using it anymore. Or God forbid, Tesla adds that feature to the app and then delete it. And so having just a dashboard of all of these sort of like little, subscription pebbles, little tiny things in the sort of SaaS existence that we're all suffering through right now. Having just one screen for that to manage all of it and at a glance be able to turn them all off if I wanted to. Really, really nice. And there's no equivalent now, right? You could say, well, you could use something like Rocket Money or any of the, like Lunch Money or Copilot or Monarch or any of these sort of budgeting apps. But that's not what I'm talking about, because like none of those can just like toggle it. The people give Apple a lot of shit, but being able to very easily cancel subscriptions and get refunds as well. Not a lot of people know this, but if you go to reportaproblem.apple.com, you can get a refund on basically anything, any digital thing that you buy from Apple, and they'll pretty much always approve it. At least in my experience, they always do. Accidentally rented this movie or, bought this app, didn't do what I said it would do. And you'll basically always get your refund. That's not the case once you're in the, and I think that what I'm experiencing is we've gone from the, all the talk is about the scare sheet that Apple was going to put up about like, hey, you're not going to get easy refunds. And everyone's like, how fuck you, you're making it harder for you. And now we're in this reality all of a sudden. And I'm like, what the fuck? I don't get easy refunds anymore, So it's just perspective. Posse Party is an app. You go to posseparty.com and you figure out how to spell that fucking correctly. You'll see a long story about why I'm building this app. And you may have heard of it, but basically it just syndicates an RSS feed from a blog or a website. And like a little sprinkler head will just go kitcha, 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 kitcha. I'm really good at sound effects. Imagine whatever sound you assume sprinkler heads make. It does that in all the directions at all your social media accounts. And I had some work to do. First of all, several of the integrations were not working consistently. There's still a couple kinks. Additionally, I only had 4 integrations and I wanted up to, I think I had 8 in mind. So when I had that Airbnb in Tokyo for a few days, I was like, before I leave Japan, because I want to be done with this fucking thing, I want to implement those other integrations. Coincident to that, Mike McQuaid, the homebrew guy, who might be listening to this at 3x while he, don't call it CrossFit, power lifts, does some kind of very manly lifting. He's Scottish, so I assume it's caber tossing, unless that's an Irish thing. I don't know what the fuck Scottish people do. No one can understand them. He'd been encouraging me to get serious about using Cursor as opposed to GitHub Copilot. So I paid Cursor the $20, and I realized that, yes, they're all using the same models under the hood, but Cursor is just more aggressive, like no holds barred, like will actually use tools more, will burn through more tokens, will just be more relentless, whereas GitHub Copilot is more staid and conservative. And additionally, the tools diverge in those directions, right? Where you can almost think of it as Copilot is primarily, and most new GitHub features are kind of focused on the enterprise customer because that's where their bread is buttered. And so they're focused on those kinds of audiences and what those people want. And cursor's more like vibe code. Let's just have computers build everything for us. So it was my first experience using a cursor agent in earnest. And I got to that point where I was like, you know what? Here's a code base. You've indexed the code base. Here are 4 adapters. So if you follow what I found over that few days is that if you have, as a programmer like me, implemented a rigorous, clear contract in the code base, whether you're using a type-safe programming languages or something like Ruby, if you've been very, very consistent about your style and about how things are structured, and you successfully, use the @ symbol when you're chatting to it, and you say, I want something just like this, and you point to those files, you point to those folders, and say, make an adapter just like these other 3 adapters, the exact same inputs and outputs. The only difference is I want you to talk to, in this case, I was adding Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook pages, and YouTube shorts. I want you to implement this just like the Blue Sky one. Or I want you to implement this one, like the LinkedIn is just like the X integration. So make it like that. And additionally, of course, go and do the research of like what I need to do to get you the API keys. And I'll go do that and you go do this. And so it was really a divide and conquer of me fighting with all of these individual one-off developer portals to like, sign up for API access and get the keys and set the environment variables and do that while it went to town on writing the code. And here's the thing. I got it all done in a compressed timeline. I got all 4 of those implemented, and by the end of the day, of each day, I had the next one implemented, and I had a test for it, and I saw it working in production. So now if you go to my LinkedIn this month anyway, it's almost all just chock-a-block of restaurant reviews. Sorry about that, by the way. If you follow all my feeds, I had a backlog of restaurant reviews, and they all just kind of came flooding forward. So I hope you like pictures of bar food. That's over now. I think that's behind us. I think we're just back to your regularly scheduled programming of shitty takes on the internet. But the thing that I take away from this experience is that if you're somebody who likes to code, if you are a programmer because you're passionate about programming and you enjoy the process and you like thinking deeply, and yes, it means you move a little bit slower, but you actually you kind of enjoy the cadence, or at least I've learned to embrace that cadence of you wake up in the morning, you plan something out, you try, you fail, you get frustrated, you have lunch or you go on a run or something, you come back, you get a second wind, you solve the problem. At the end of the day, it's 5 p.m. It's time for dinner. You feel good. You got over the mountain. You've solved the problem. That was a good day. Using an agent like Cursor really fucks that whole daily rhythm. Because you'll start your day, you'll do the same planning. Now instead of pen and paper, maybe you're planning in a markdown file or interactively with the chat. That's all plus. That's all good. That's nothing lost there. But then you'll tell the agent, okay, let her rip. And it'll churn and churn and churn, and you'll go get a coffee. And you can actually in Cursor just tell it, hey, make a sound effect, make a little ding, like a toaster ding when you're done. You come back to it and you realize, well, this isn't what I wanted, right? You look at it, you look at the, I would open my Git client. I'd be like, I don't like that. I don't like that. I don't like that. You expressly violated the rules I set for you over here. I look at this code. I know that won't work when you try to do it. I don't care if you have a test for it. I know it won't work. And so then I would come up with a numbered list of you fucked up here, 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 here. And to its credit, my favorite thing about Claude 4 is that it will feel like shit and apologize. In fact, I think I put that near the top of my Cursor rules. So I was like, when you fuck up, I want you to feel really goddamn bad. And I want you to be so badly not want to feel badly and feel ashamed that you think extra hard before you do stuff. Before you tell me it's done, reread all these rules and because I will call you a fucking idiot and you're going to feel bad. And so now I've got this agent that's like, I feel so terribly. I'm so fucking sorry. God, I'm such a fuck up. And I'm like, yes, I really am creating a digital version of me now. So that is what we're talking about. Uh, it, to be honest, I don't have a problem with giving it that feedback and having it continue to iterate because it got me to my result faster. But I will say that having to read code I don't like, to have to continue to repeat myself over and over again only to not get the result I want, to have to decide, would it be faster for me to edit this little bit here and here and here and here, and then basically clean up after the robot? Or would it be faster for me just to try to encode into it? Hey, what the fuck do I have to tell you to get you to not do this? And so all of those things suck. They are all experientially and from a rhythm of the day perspective significantly worse than just sitting down, playing some music, and writing code. But that for me is slower because I'm a perfectionist, because I don't know everything, because I'm less relentless than the computer, who will just keep on iterating and spitting out all the code over and over and over and over again until it thinks it works. I don't work that way. I'll try one thing that I'm really sure will work, and then it doesn't work, and then I get sad, and then I start Googling, and then I check Twitter or whatever the fuck, like that all the reasons that I'm unproductive, it is productive, but all the reasons that I'm wise, it is not wise, right? Because it's a stateless machine. It doesn't remember this shit. It doesn't actually accrue the wisdom that I've gained as it works if that wisdom is not in its training data, which is why I do these multi-hour podcasts, because maybe someday future models will just contain the entire corpus of all the shit that I've ever thought. Sorry. This podcast isn't for me. It's not for you. It's for the future overlords. I really hated how I felt at the end of the day. I felt like I needed a couple strong drinks. It just felt shitty. It felt like exhausting. It felt like working with, if last year AI felt like a mediocre junior developer, which is worse than useless, honestly, because like they're just going to be a drag on your productivity. Then this year's version is like a mediocre intermediate developer. Like they are capable of doing stuff with lots of direction, but it will require lots of feedback and iteration. Then that's where we're at, but it does feel like I'm working with an intermediate developer who needs a lot of coaching. And I am not in the coaching people game, right? Like I don't like that. I like to be productive individually. I like to get stuff done. I like to be the solver of the problems. And here I am relinquishing control of that and to a computer in the interest of moving faster. Just because in this case, I want to be fucking done with this app. So I got there. I got over the hump. I don't know how to feel about any of this, right? Like what if when like the fastest way to get something done is to take this route, but I'm going to feel shitty. Now you could, if you're listening to this, like I'm sure you're going to bring whatever biases you have about these tools to the conversation in your mind. Know that like from a quality perspective, I am very sure when I read the code, because I was scrutinizing it, because I was giving it the do we say the 5th degree? I was giving it a high degree of shit. When I read the code, I'm pretty sure that like the code that I would have written and the code that we ended up at is very similar. So it's not like I was trading speed for quality. I was trading speed for quality of experience, for how enjoyable it was. And that is, if you think of programming as a form of commerce, like if I was getting paid to build this by the hour, what would be the appropriate thing? What would be the responsible thing to do for a client or for an employer? If I could, well, I can do this in 20 hours, but I'm not going to have it my way. I'm not going to feel good afterwards. I'm going to need a hot bath and a drink at the end of the night because it's going to be miserable. Or I could do it in 40 hours and I feel nicer. Like, I think most people paying for me would be like, well, we pay you a lot and some jobs are hard. So maybe the one that's going to cost me half as much and you feel shitty. I mean, that's why alcohol exists, bud. Like I think that is an underexplored dynamic. of this new generation of tools, because it sort of seems like there's this gigantic divide between developers who insist on not really using any of these tools in earnest, maybe just as research things or just for the planning, and they don't want to engage very closely, maybe for some of the reasons that I just mentioned. And then you have the people who the vibe coders of the far other extreme who are, maybe they were never any good at coding to begin with or didn't know it at all, and this has unlocked new capabilities they never fucking had. So for them, it's all upside. Yes, maybe it's creating a big mess. Maybe it's really buggy. Maybe it's really shit. But like for them, the alternative was I could not have done this, and so it's still worth it, right? Like they can just tell it, hey, go fix this bug. Hey, this doesn't work, and they can keep getting there. And like, sure, you open up, you pull back the covers, and it's just, you know, an absolute dumpster fire. But it's their dumpster fire and it works. And if it wasn't for this tool, they never would have been able to get any of this done. So, I mean, those are the two stories that we kind of see, right? And a lot of the times when people are talking about AI coding assistants, they're people are talking over each other because like they're making an assumption from one of these from one of these modalities about, but actually speaking to the other. For me, kind of trapped in the middle, it's like, yeah, I can go and visit this other one. I can try both ways, but like mixing these two together into like some sort of synergistic combination of really embracing these tools, really using agents to build code because I can figure out how to do it faster, but also sacrificing 20 plus years of workflow of like, it's like if you were a craftsperson, I'm just going to craftsman, you're a person who made chairs, you did woodworking, and you had as much as like sourcing the right materials and having the right plans, like you had a process that resulted in really, really great chairs. You made great, awesome chairs, and that process and the thoughts that you would think and the flow of the day was as much what went into making that chair great. If you had a way that was just like, hey, you know, you're not going to actually touch the wood anymore, but you have to do this sequence of dances and yelling at robots, and like literal robot arms are making it, but like you just have to yell at them the same way every time, and you'll get the chair twice as fast. And so you'll be able to sell twice as many chairs. Like, that's what we're talking about. And like that is an unfortunate decision that now I have to make every time I go and write code. So that's interesting. As for what I'm going to do with Posse Party, I've got all 8 integrations working. I'm now blasting all my content anywhere people might listen, which isn't very many people or places, because it seems like no one lives on these apps anymore. But yeah, I that's done. I can move on to other things, and so that's my plan. I don't know what a public release of Posse Party is going to look like. I'd planned on making it a SaaS app, but you tell me. Imagine an app where people have to manage up to 8 different API connections to different services. Maybe more if they've got multiples of a given account. If you got 4 X accounts, you only get 1 free API project per X account. So maybe that's 4 different API connections, right? Now imagine all the reasons it could fail. Malformed RSS, like this thing is just a single point of failure generator. Like there's so many ways that any one post could fail to post or post the wrong thing in the wrong way because of stuff that's outside of the app's proper control. Like, do I really want to own support at posseparty.com and be the guy, right, that has to respond when somebody's, you know, big product announcement shows up early or out of order or doesn't get posted to the one platform that like all their people are on? Like, that doesn't sound like something that a happily unemployed person would do. So I got to think through that, but that's it. It's time for Aaron's pun. We're going to be quick with this one. I don't know what the pun is. I don't know how long it is. Pulling up the pun now. If you don't know the drill, I rate puns. Aaron writes the puns. Now you know the drill. All right. I have not read the pun. This is my first reading of the pun. I bought a new camera and I'm having a hard time learning how to use it. No matter what I do, it just doesn't click. One more time with feeling. I bought a new camera and I'm having a hard time learning how to use it. No matter what I do, it just doesn't click. How do you feel about that pun? Where do you think that lands in the pantheon of Aaron puns? Take a moment. I don't know. I don't know about this one. I think we gotta. The reason we're ranking them is that the only way to rank to evaluate a pun in my book is relativistically. Otherwise, you're just saying, I don't know, good, bad. I guess we could do a scoring system, but that the forcing function of having to squeeze this thing between two other puns is helpful. Well, let's just do a traditional bisect algorithm. So right now we are in year 2. We have 11 puns so far. This would be the 12th. So let's look right between 5 and 6. The 5th ranked pun. My biggest issue with callbacks is that I wish they would text first. It's a good one. Number 6. It's a programming reference, but it's a good one. Number 6. The problem with insurance company ads is all of their bold claims. It's also a really good one. Especially in a state like Florida, where home insurance is an evergreen topic of discussion. So let's say it's worse than those two. Let's bisect again, right? So we're doing this algorithm. So I'm gonna all my keyboard shortcuts are broken because I came back to a broken home. Nope. All right. Well, I can't easily move this anymore. Oops. So bisecting again, let's look at the 9th ranked one. I heard most cars are designed by a steering committee. I've never really liked that one. So I guess this would be higher than that. The 8th ranked, so the one we'd be squeezing between. I'm thinking of starting a YouTube channel for physicists and calling it Mass Media. I feel like I read that one and then every time I kind of like just, not that I don't get it, but that it doesn't click. Let's keep going up. The 7th ranked. It took me a while to figure out how to get my boat to float, but then I let it sink in. All right. That one is better than I probably gave it credit for. I don't know why I was so hard on that one. This is a humbling exercise for me. I'm going to say this one's between 7 and 8. So this is the new number 8 pun. I bought a new camera and I'm having a hard time learning how to use it. No matter what I do, it just doesn't click. So thank you, Aaron, for the contribution to the program. We're going to take a quick break. And then we're going to get on with the news. If you, like me, are a millennial, one of the basket of innovations that we were promised for a long time as being something we'll see in our lifetime is that eventually science would get to the point where we could probably just not have mosquitoes anymore. So it sounds like we might be getting close. And now it's moved from is this a scientific possibility to the bioethicists are, several people are typing all at once about it. So Washington Post put out I don't know if it was technically an opinion piece or a news piece, but it sounded like it was like really trying to grapple with the question of whether or not, like, yes, you could inject, give mosquitoes a virus where, the lady mosquitoes are born without ovaries. Which sounds sad when you put it that way. And in so doing, save hundreds of thousands of lives from malaria and other mosquito-borne diseases every year. But, potentially wipe mosquitoes off the face of the planet. Ringworm, another candidate. Certain locations like that have vermin, rat problems, and so forth, have all been discussed. And it seems like, the thing about mosquitoes in particular, I am one of those people who gets eaten alive every time I go outside. The thing about mosquitoes in particular is that, like, it seems like no one has ever been able to point to an ecosystem and say, yes, here's the benefit of the mosquito. Here's what good it is doing. It's not like picking up a seed and carrying it further away so that a tree can grow. It's just sucking blood out of one thing. And I doubt mixing blood with other things to make mutations, right? Like, there's not, like, it doesn't serve, it's not a sufficient food source for anything, apparently. They just fucking suck blood and suck. They just suck. I'm on team kill all the fucking mosquitoes. Like, a lot of, like if you read the article, a lot of these bioethicists live in this fantasy world where we haven't already completely fucked the planet 8 ways to Tuesday. Like, yeah, sure. It's like, it would have been nice if in the 50s we got together and formed a committee of scientists to say, hey, should we just fill the ocean with plastic? And then decide affirmatively, like, yes, we should, no, we shouldn't. And, like, there was just never the conversation. We just did it, right? There was never a conversation similarly a number of years ago during the industrial, hey, should we crank up the temperature on all of the planet? Just make it real hot all the time? Like, if we could have affirmatively said no, then that would have been a good time to do that. So, like, the planet's already super fucked. We may as well have a few wins, right? Like, if we're going to start fucking with the planet for, like, all these terrible ways, like, let's at least, fuck with it for the little guy, the kid in Africa who's got malaria, the me who wants to take a walk after 6 p.m., in Florida, let us get something out of all this fuckery. So I'm on team fuck the mosquitoes, and while we're at it, kill all the ringworms. In other news, the Supreme Court has if you're a big fan of pornography, like, for example, if you don't work in the jerking off cattle industry. I'm remembering now that when I was out with those guys, I did make a joke about cow porn and whether or not they do things to, like, stimulate the male cows visually. So I don't know if there's cow porn. I don't think I got to that. I think that they went straight to, no, we actually use the same masturbatory devices that men use in Japan. What do they call it? The tengen? They're like egg shaped. Hey, the more you know, right? Knowledge is neutral. You can do with that tidbit whatever you want. Anyway, if you're a big fan of pornography, according to the Supreme Court, you might need to verify your age to consume it for money, which apparently some people do, even though it's free and seemingly everywhere all the time. But because of these laws, Pornhub and others have pulled out of several states that have passed them. So, if you're... I'm actually surprised. There are so many advertisements for VPN services, and they'll come up with these, like, the average person doesn't care about what Netflix show they can play if they were pretending to be in Ireland. The average person is not that international. The average person doesn't understand why the Wi-Fi isn't safe and why they have to get on ExpressVPN. Because in truth, they kind of don't. Like, everything is SSL now. It's fine, right? Like, what they would understand is the two things people really use VPNs for, which is, like, piracy and increasingly being able to view porn from Florida. Like, it's the advertisements for VPN services are right up there with Q-tips, where, like, the box for the Q-tip literally says, don't stick it in your ear, even though no one's ever thought of another usage of the Q-tip but to stick it in your ear. The prudish VPN companies just need to be like, you get all the porn you want, man. You want freaky Mexican porn? There's a button for that. You click Mexico, you find whatever, man. That's what. Anyway, the Supreme Court says we're going to continue living in this world where the websites can have or the laws can be passed basically with age verification on the internet. Now, the reason this is different than like, you're at a store and you're have to show your ID before you buy, I don't know. Imagine a world where stores still sold pornography. The world of Japan does this. Every convenience store, basically. So weird. The difference between that, getting carded, and verifying your age online is that the internet is a pretty anonymous place. People like to be anonymous when they're viewing pornography. I don't know why. Although plenty of people are in the comments, which is always weird that porn videos have comments and that people comment and have discussions. I vaguely remember a Tumblr of people having like serious conversations in porn video comments that aren't about porn, but are about things like, how they're doing in life, recipes. Anywho. So this is like important from a technology and a policy perspective, because if you can verify age, you can verify identity, and verifying identity is very hard, right? Like, so you have to find a proxy for it. You have to like, well, is using a credit card payment, is that sufficient, right? Well, no, because you could take dad's card. Well, is scanning an ID sufficient? Well, no, because you could take dad's, wallet, right? Or just have a picture of it. Well, is a selfie that uses AI to scan faces? Well, if it's, facial recognition, it's like, like the ethical thing in terms of service. And it's like people should be able, so what if you got a baby face? What if you're a 40-year-old fucking man with a baby face and you want to get off? And your porn site scans your face and says, you're under 18, buddy. And you're like, no, I'm not. I just have a baby face. Like, what are we going to do? Because now that's the opportunity for false positives and false negatives is just, you got like a craggy ass, wrinkled motherfucking just old leather glove of a face like mine, and you're only 15. Suddenly, you're the most popular kid in high school because everyone just wants to jerk off. They will like go to the login screen or whatever, and then just point their phone at you, and then they'll go run off to the bathroom. Is what they'll do. So, anyway. A lot of companies have been pushing the platform holders, that is, namely Apple and Google, and a distant Microsoft out there somewhere for the people who use their computers to view pornography, to introduce a platform operating system standard level way, like basically a built-in OS framework, API for age verification. And make it the platform holder's problem, because the platform already is going to have your payment information. It's going to collect a lot of other information about you. And of course, the platform holders, they don't want to be the, pornography police any more than anything else. In fact, Apple just tries to pretend that pornography doesn't exist and say, hey, hard no, that's not in the App Store, even though it's all over the internet and anything that has a browser, and all the apps have browsers. As far as we know, we don't know that porn happens. So anyway, this is really interesting. This is going to create a veritable, just rat fuck of very complicated and convoluted technical solutions that are all bad. People's, if you thought Ashley Madison with like the leaked database was bad, like people's information absolutely will leak. Divorces will occur. People will be outed in states and places where it's not safe to be out. Still, it's, yep. Cool. Next up. Speaking of leaks and security failures. So you remember that CrowdStrike thing where like, CrowdStrike, a security software company that mostly does enterprise stuff. Well, they have like, kernel extensions that run on Windows machines in enterprises to make sure that, like, I guess none of the individual computers are either infected with shit or have network settings that would allow them to be infected with shit. They put out an update to that highly privileged, runs at the kernel software, and then they bricked like every Windows machine in corporate America, including all the ones at Delta, grounding Delta's fleet for a long fucking time, to the point where, because these machines ran Windows, Microsoft had as much egg on their face as CrowdStrike did. And Microsoft was quick to say, like, look, this is, we tried to lock down our kernel. Everyone lost their fucking shit and called us monopolists. Mr. Monopoly guy, who doesn't have a top hat, just has the monocle. Doesn't have a monocle, does have the top hat. It's Mr. Peanut that has the monocle. So we got into that whole, Mandela effect conversation of whether or not the Monopoly guy has the monocle. That's basically where the story left off a year and a half ago or whenever this happened. Well, the story is back, because now that some time has passed, Microsoft is once again saying, like, maybe you remember the CrowdStrike thing? Like, maybe we should actually lock down our kernel so that random ass, companies like this can't just brick your devices. And of course, if you're the random ass company, if you're the security firm, like, your entire value proposition is being able to get in real fucking deep into that computer, right? Like, there's various types of software like this. There's anti-cheat software for video games. And the thing about open platforms like Linux is, like, it's really hard to install an anti-cheat system in the kernel level, because, like, anyone has access to anything and they could just, like, trick it, right? Like, but with Windows and these kernel extensions that, like, basically anyone can write to, it's always yes, like, one man's security company is another man's, like, additional vector for more vulnerabilities. You install a bunch of Kaspersky shit from Russia. It's like, suddenly you got all these back doors into your computer. So, like, Microsoft is, like, I think, in the right to want to lock it down. But, everyone still remembers, like, bad Microsoft monopolizing stuff. And these companies, of course, wouldn't like it, because their entire value prop is predicated on their ability to have unfettered access to every single corporate American machine out there. It'll be interesting to see where this goes, because there's always been, I think, some jealousy on the part of modern day Microsoft Windows, looking at the Mac OS and how they've been able to secure it, right? Like, in really lock stuff down. And the Mac market share is small enough, and its developers are compliant enough that they could do things like basically make it impossible to run system extensions and kernel extensions, and usually give, like, a little bit of transition time, or usually get, like, if you jump through a whole bunch of hoops and you, like, boot into recovery mode and you turn off system integrity protection or whatever, then you can run your Rogue Amoeba, audio hijack or whatever. Now what Apple has done smartly and over time is add very targeted extension points for people like Rogue Amoeba and their audio tools, but they're just limited to that. It's not a unfettered free access to just hack the kernel. Now, if you're listening to this and you don't know what a kernel is, it's not like a popcorn kernel. In fact, I don't know why we call it a kernel. I guess it's like a kernel in that it's, like, in the very, very center of your operating system is a little tiny, tiny bit of code. Like proportionally, it's a very small amount of code compared to all the code that runs on your computer, but it's the most important piece of code, because it's the code that connects the, highfalutin software world of words and ideas and thoughts and stuff we want to do with your hardware. And so they translate function calls to your disk or to your CPU or whatever. And so if you can change that, then you can really change reality in real time and change the behavior of all these programs without having to edit those programs themselves. So it's really a big deal to be able to edit what the kernel does. Yeah, so Windows is finally getting around to that. I'll share that link if you're interested. Moving on to AI news. Old timey news sounds so mundane, right? Like, those three, that was just like, remember when news was just boring? And not like, what's AI doing to us this week? AI is the perfect news topic to just have that, like, volatility that is a match for the current news cycle of we're all bored within 15 minutes. I loved this Bloomberg piece. Apparently, the title, as AI infiltrates call centers, human workers are being mistaken for bots. Which, could you imagine? You already have a terrible job. You're answering tech support calls, and then as soon as somebody doesn't hear what they want to hear from you, they're like, "You're an AI. You're a bot. Give me a human." And you're like, "Sir, I am a human. Maybe I have an accent." No, you're a bot. I can tell. So that's great. That's just great. I don't know. What are you gonna do? Like, I guess like maybe you're a bot is gonna just become this insult that will be levied anytime you don't see somebody face to face, or maybe even when you do. Eventually, like the more enlightened among us will eventually be like, so what? I'm a bot. I'm here to help you. You can take it or leave it, man. Like that's probably the right answer. Otherwise, they'll just keep yelling at you. That's call center news you can use. In fact, actually, like I might actually talk. The guy across the street from me, he owns that house as a vacation home, and he lives up in Maine, and he had a call center company, and he sold it. And I remember when I met him a few years ago, I was like, yeah, you sold your call center company just the right time, man. I feel like automation, AI, all these things, it's going to be a tough market. And he's like, yeah, I know. I'm really glad to be out. And then like he just got right back into it. Like people from that company like started another call center company. So I don't know exactly how into call centers he currently is, but something tells me that it's a tough business to be like a call center provider. Although if anyone can do it, it's him. He's a smart guy. This blog, I might actually start following this blog. It's notsocommonthoughts.com, and its title of this post, AI and the Rise of Judgment Over Technical Skill. This resonated with me because I think there's a whole cadre of conversations around AI that it's discriminating especially in tech, but of practitioners of the creative types, of people who do knowledge work. It's really, really management methodologies have attempted to separate and discern order takers from critical thinkers. And I've been part of so many conversations at so many companies to either manage those two groups separately or together, or to identify who's who, right, in a blended team, because the value is different and certain modes of operation for companies is different. Sometimes you need order takers just to kind of turn the crank and do the thing. And sometimes you need the creative critical thinkers to solve real hard problems and to do stuff that people haven't done before. And now it's true that like anyone can be either of those things. It's not fixed in time. But what we're seeing with AI is that if you're a critical thinker and you look at this and you're like, this is a walrus, and if I get on that walrus's back, I can ride it and I can do things that I couldn't do before, or I could do them faster, and you'll have creative ideas. Like every day I have a new fucking idea of an app that I want to build, or something that I could do that I couldn't have done before. I guess I here am elevating myself to the level of critical thinker. Sorry if that's presumptuous. But then other people, they look at the exact same tool and all they see is this is a, anti-worker. This is stealing from me. This is taking my value away. This is a threat. And that's not just a failure of imagination, though that is literally true. But in particular in tech, we used to value the person who's on the team who just happens to know all of the APIs and know all of the right answers. When I was in college and we had a literal physical paper binder of the Java specification of every API in Java. And if you'd memorize that, you'd be way better and smarter and faster on a team than me and everyone else who had to go and look it up in a book, because that's slow. You have to be in the lab. You have to open it up, and it's very laborious. Google, Stack Overflow, like those things shortened that loop, but it was still much, much better just to be the guy who knew all the answers right away because he could move faster. And additional forms of technical skill, like being able to write a method really quickly, right? Without having to think, how the fuck do I do recursion again? For the 50th, 500th fucking time in 20 years, which I still fall into every now and then if I'm not thinking right. That technical skill is valued almost as if it's its own career path or speciality among programmers. Yeah, well, they're not really good at talking to customers. They're not really creative. They're not really able to think about like big picture stuff and business value. But boy, are they able to write technically correct functions really quickly. Or boy, do they have a lock on this particular API. They know the Rails API cold, right? All those methods. And I can think of people, developers are coming to my mind, who people I really respect, who people I really leaned on for years. What this post will say, if you read it, and you should, it's pretty good, is basically like, look, like the era of the technical skills on their own being the thing of value economically, that's over. Because the AI, the relentless agent that will just keep, not only just keep trying infinitely, but is every year, every month, getting smarter and smarter and smarter and gets better as it goes. Especially if you give it the right inputs and outputs, which a critical thinker can do in terms of setting the constraints, setting the rules, continuing to adjust and incrementally improve, right? Like the last thing I do after every time I work with an agent, it's almost like I have a retrospective. So you have the planning session at the beginning, you get your shit done, things go well or poorly. I have a retrospective. I like this, all these things. This went bad. This went bad. How do I? And I'll sum it up and I'll say, what can I do to prevent this from happening again? And it'll say, here, I'll update your rules for you. If you'd worded your rule like this sentence instead of that sentence, I don't think that I would have done it. All right, cool. And then I'll try the rules. And after a week of that, you're like, okay, my rules now are pretty dialed into what I need. And it starts behaving right. The strict technical skill isn't the thing that's valuable anymore. That is a reality that you can choose to live with or try to not live with. But like from an economic perspective, it's going to be just the world we live in. The critical thinkers though, like if you look at this and you're like, I can get 10 times more stuff done, or I can cover 10 times as many ideas, or I can iterate and prototype and I can try stuff out, or I can hit these moonshot goals that we never thought was possible for our organization before based on our staffing or whatever it is. There's a discerning, discriminating like quality to this moment of what kind of role player you were in the tech world. And if you fall on the wrong side of it, you are well and truly fucked. And if you fall on the right side of it, there's never been a better time to be a programmer. And what we're seeing in real time is people reacting as they will, but not necessarily with the clarity of mind of understanding that's exactly where we are. So that's why this is a good post on the internet by a person. Another take, a take I didn't agree with. Aaron sent me this take. He agrees with it. I said, I disagree. He said, no, I think you're wrong. We had a rare moment of disagreement. I'm comfortable talking about our disagreements in public, both because he and I have a very mature and loving relationship, and because I know he's not going to listen to this. So I can talk shit about how he's wrong now. This is from ingrids.space. Oh, I love all these creative domain names. Title: What Google Translate can tell us about vibe coding. Well, essentially, my recollection of this, I'm not going to reread it now. These posts are long. Too long just to read like that. My recollection is, look, like Google Translate was a thing. That's also very deep learning, and it can translate stuff competently. But it doesn't get the, point being, it's like it hasn't replaced translators. Why not? Because it doesn't get all these cultural nuances with this example of like Norway and potatoes. And if you say this, it's going to, if you just translate it literally, it won't work. And I don't know what Ingrid's Space does for a living, or if they speak multiple languages in normal life frequently. if you, like me, have been using computers to try to travel to a country where you don't fucking know the language or you're trying to learn the language, like you will have noticed actually that in recent years, the last 2 or 3 years especially, computers are getting not only better at translating literally, but also all of that context, all of that, like I can go to ChatGPT and I can say, write an email and write it from the perspective that like I am the customer speaking politely to a vendor that does this. And I can give it enough context that it's going to use the appropriate politeness forms and humility forms throughout. And if I'd said it the other way around, I am the vendor and I'm speaking to my client and they're my customer. If I just switched that around, it would have written a totally fucking different email, right? Like, so when Ingrid says, oh, well, like interpreters are still a thing and translation services, there's actually more being hired now than ever, right? Like, I think that is a function of the like services like Gengo and stuff that are online Mechanical Turk or international, like basically a two-sided network marketplace of people who provide translation services. Like that has gotten easier. So there are more of them because it's become a gig work thing. That's why it still exists. And that's why there's more of them now than there were 10 years ago. So yeah, it's true that Google Translate did not kill the translator, but the reason is not that like translation tools are incapable of cultural nuance. Like in fact, ChatGPT is a very good translation tool and it has all the cultural nuance. In fact, purpose-built translation tools like DeepL are really, really good at doing exactly this. DeepL is a great tool. I don't use Google Translate. I use DeepL pretty much whenever I just need a translator because it will convey a lot of the nuance. Now, it's not perfect. It's not as good as one of these, but I wouldn't hang my hat on this analogy that because Google Translate didn't put translators out of business yet, that AI is not going to put, and vibe coding is not going to put programmers out of business. Whether it does or doesn't, I don't know, but I think that this is a bad analogy. And Aaron wasn't the only one who sent me that. Other people did too. But it's important to know that they're all wrong, and they will be wrong in their wrongness about this one in particular. Because, this is not Google Translate. And in fact, if that's what you're saying, you're modern AI tools kind of undercut the thing that you're trying to say. I got hoarse. That made me hoarse. I'm going to drink some water now. I don't normally drink on the radio. It's so weird too, because drinking water, well, first of all, this particular water bottle is apparently too glug. I forgot I normally have a straw that I never use, right? And I'm usually not even prepared to drink water on the show. Because I want to come at you hot with 3 hours. And when I want a pregnant pause between things, I want it to be intentional. But I don't want it to be noisy. But if I had a martini, I would have felt totally normal because I would have been able to work it in like a gag. Well, thus concludes the water break. Palate cleanser. Meta released an AI app, and you can do AI shit on it. And you might have seen this story is a couple weeks old at this point. It's apparently everything you do on it is tied to your Instagram or Facebook account. And if you click a thing, it becomes public, just like a post becomes public and visible to the world or visible to your friends. You can have, sharing access set up for it. And a lot of people are talking about murdering people and frauding people and cheating on their spouses and talking about how to get with underage girls and all sorts of fun stuff. And then the AI, for its part, is helping. Oh, here's how to do that. Maybe cut your hair, man. Lose some weight. Maybe then those schoolgirls will be into you. I don't know. Like if you dug through, if you read an article about this thing, and then you went Googling for examples, and then you left that experience with the same opinion of humanity that you had as you entered it, you're built a stiffer stuff than I am. Because holy shit, people are fucking terrible. You used to see things. When I visited Google in 2007, they had a television screen of every single Google search as it was happening in real time, and it was very fast. And at some point, they said that they had to uh, basically pluck some of them at random, right? So it's like a sampling of them. And the others were still, I guess, on the screen, just going by really fast, and like some would pause long enough that you could read them. And then they said that only like relatively recent to that, they had to implement stop words so you didn't actually see what everyone was Googling. They're like, yeah, at this point, 30-40% of the stuff on that screen is actually filtered out because humans are fucking disgusting. You know, they're I'm just saying that those guys who trade the cow semen, there's another revenue stream that they're not thinking about. that maybe they should. Next one. This is actually, I have been linked to this Substack several times, and I really like it. It looks like a Ruby developer, and I think they're building like an MCP server thing called. I should just look this up. It's Scott Werner's company. He has good blogs. It's called worksonmymachine.substack. I'm a find it because it's like a good Sublang or something like that. You should make it easier to tell me what you work on. Sublayer. Sublayer is the name of the thing. So if you're a Rubyist, check out Sublayer. Sublayer, as in layers in Photoshop, but beneath them. He wrote this good post about MCP and how it's accidentally a universal protocol or universal plugin system. We have been talking about this for years, but when I first saw MCP, which is like Model Context Protocol, it's basically like it was designed as a way for LLMs, for Claude and ChatGPT, to be able to like poke at and prod your computer or remote services in a more formal way than just, picking up your web browser and scraping the page, right? Like, here is a protocol for reading files from your file system or doing a search in this app, right? Or loading a product page and getting back JSON instead of HTML. And you might remember, if you're old like me, like 40, like of SOAP, of service-oriented architecture, and all of the complexity of building proper services and advertising those services with directories like WSDL, the Web Service Directory Listing protocol, and the amount of formality and then the type safety and the amount of machinery that went into that. And then, of course, because it was complicated and because it was cart before the horse, we were building that so that it could be used. No one used it, because if you build it, they don't come. And then we had HTTP APIs in Web 2.0, and we made it much easier. Where one of the first API projects I made was to the Instagram API, which existed. You could just ask it for pictures of stuff. You could search for stuff, and for free, you get back a whole bunch of images of babies or whatever you wanted. And of course, that was what Web 2.0 was supposed to be. You would have the web, but you would also have these APIs, and you'd have computer programs that could do mashup. Like that's what Mashable originally was, right? It was like, look at these cool things that are taking this app and combining them. But then with the platformification of everything and everyone becoming like, a digital ad player, they all wanted you back on their app, right? So that they locked it down. They took away the APIs. Suddenly, because AIs are cool, I guess, and because they're all the rage, MCP, even though it's even less put together and less well-defined than basic HTTP JSON APIs were 15 years ago, all these same players are making APIs again. And so what's ostensibly this plugin system for letting large language models do stuff, like it's nothing about it is LLM specific. In fact, as soon as I was reading this, I was like, I'm really glad somebody is making this point. Like what we have now is this new golden age of accidental API access to all of these services just because they want to have an AI story. And it's true that somebody might start charging for API access for this stuff, and that's to be expected. But it's also like coming at the end of a long, long drought of us basically having no API access to a lot of services and tools. And even on the operating system level, like earlier, like our operating systems tend to be even more locked down than they used to be. And so this is kind of neat. Like, so anyway, if you're an AI skeptic, MCP can still be a really cool avenue for building mashup programs that integrate stuff that don't want to be integrated otherwise. And in fact, you can just do without the AI part in the middle. You can just use libraries that talk to MCP tools and cobble them together. I wrote a couple scripts like that I was like, I'm going to write an agenty script. And then I realized the LLM was doing no useful work in the middle and it could have just been a function. So I'd write a function and now it's talking to 3 different tools with LangChain or whatever. So FYI, good insight. Deserves some credit. Over in Apple land, they got slapped on the nose, bopped on the nose, slapped on the hand, wag of the finger, for not adhering to the spirit of the DMA, the Digital Markets Act in Europe. We talked a lot about this in season 1 of the program, and then I was like, this fucking sucks to talk about, and so I talk about it less now. Anyway, I'm going to link to one of their newest plan. Introduces, I think it was an 8% fee if you want to have like the full App Store experience. If you want to come up in the App Store search for keywords other than your literal name, if you want to have automatic app updates, which are as they're as much a feature for the user to get secure updates, but obviously if you're a company and you can't put up and you know that most people aren't going to update your app, like that's a big problem. So what Apple's being forced to do is say, like, we do provide value here, and here's how we're going to demonstrate it, is you can either pay 8% or not, but that 8% commission gets you access to things like automatic app updates in our store. And so basically what Europe's forced them to do is take what had been a holistic, this is our cut. We believe that this litany of things provides value. It's forced Apple to specify what those things are, and then create a price chart, that classic, this is what you get at the free tier, this is what you get at the pro and the enterprise. And so there's one of those charts now to try to explain all this shit. And you can feel how you want to feel about it, but I think I was going to say it's clever. It's just like, this is Apple rising to the challenge of being like, yeah, I guess we have to, if we want to get paid for this, we got to say what we're doing of value. So they're listing it out. And if I'm a company and I'm looking at that list, I'm like, yeah, we probably want to pay that 8% because if our app doesn't come up in search, we're probably not going to get installed very much. And that's going to be bad for growth. If our app doesn't get automatic updates and we've got, a new feature or people are paying a subscription and then their app stops working because we updated past it, then we're going to have a support headache. We're going to have to teach people to go and manually update their apps. So we're going to want that. And that is value, and Apple is providing that value. So I guess we're fucked. And we of course, our alternative is and this is the whole crux of the matter. Alternatively, we could just go off the App Store and not have this problem. But then we're not on the App Store, which means people have to fucking find us some other way. And they've got damn near 20 years of experience of the App Store being the only place where they can get apps. So what's the likelihood, if we're not super famous, of getting them to do that? I think the end game here is Meta is going to start a store, right? Like somebody else is going to start a store with like slightly better terms and rules to try to create discoverability. We'll see how it goes. But now that there's not a CTF, that's the other thing they're getting rid of, is that per install fee. These apps that charge nothing, like Instagram and TikTok, no longer have any reason to be in the App Store. If everyone's going to want them anyway, they can just say, go to my website, download my app, and I don't have to pay Apple shit. But I could see like TikTok's not going to do that. ByteDance isn't going to do that. But I could see Meta being like, well, if we're going to distribute Facebook, Instagram, and all that, and Messenger separately in our own app store in Europe, so that we can go and rootkit people's phones, which is probably the reason that's what they would get out of that. Why not host other people's apps as well? Basically, because Mark Zuckerberg's wet dream this whole time has been, I want to own a platform. I want to be outside of Apple's thumb. And I want to be the one in charge. So this is one way to do it. Anyway, see how that goes. I'll share the chart. It's a good chart. This just came out today. Ming-Chi Kuo put out a blog post with the Vision Pro roadmap, uh, boldly saying that the roadmap starts with products in 2025, but really there's one in 2025 and then the next one's in 2027. Kind of oversold it. But it's got a good little visual of like when he expects new vision hardware to come out. And what he says is that by Q4 of this year, we should expect a M5 based Vision Pro revision. And the thinking is that it's going to be the same basic chassis, the same basic design, but just faster. I would like that. That would be nice. I think it's probably like, because he's more of a supply chain guy, I would suspect this is not going to come out this fall. I think that they'll probably push it because it's not super urgent. But same time, like, Vision Pro kind of exists outside of Apple's normal release cadences because it's not a material business yet. It's just an in public, research and development project. And so since it's out, I guess when things are ready, they may as well ship. So we'll see. And I would probably upgrade because the M2, like I said, when I was on the changelog, I said, when Apple announced that Vision OS 3 or 26, I suppose, when it's going to allow you and somebody else in the room to watch a movie together or experience something in real time together, because they just announced that, I suspect that's because they've got new hardware coming and they know there's going to be a lot of hand-me-down Vision Pros among early adopter families. So you can bet your ass Becky's going to get a Vision Pro and she's going to be like, I don't want a creepy ass Persona anymore. Probably also why they improved Personas. So I've heard from many wives that they don't like Personas, and many men who are like, I already look like a basket of assholes. So what's one more? Anyway, so upcoming Vision Pro this year or next year. That's not really news. But out a little further afield, you get into 27, 28, and suddenly they're coming in pretty hot with like 4 more products. So say it's probably something like AirPods for your eyes, where it's, like the Ray-Ban glasses, like a camera on the frame and basically acting like little AirPods that you can talk to, right? No screen on the glasses. That sort of thing is currently 2027. A Vision Air, like a cheaper Vision Pro like product, 2027. 2028 is something like that exists with Vision OS but has like a glasses form factor, the second half of 28. Even that feels too early. I highly doubt we're going to see something like that by 2028, but I'm happy to be surprised. God, that'll be after the next presidential election, if you can believe it. If we have one. I'm going to keep drinking water since I broke the seal. And I'm back. All right, so I've had it's Apple beta season. I've had 2 of the betas installed. I've had my MacBook Pro I put on the beta. I had a reason. I don't remember the reason, but I installed it and it was fine. Then I put the beta on the Vision Pro because it already looks like that, and Vision Pro doesn't matter. But I wanted to see if I've got a Mac on the beta and the Vision Pro on the beta, will the Mac Virtual Desktop experience be better? And the answer is a little bit, maybe. I don't know. So if you also have these devices and you're wondering, should I get on these betas? I don't know. I guess. Nothing seems to be broken. More broken than it was. Mac OS in particular, it looks real fucking weird, I will say. I like the liquid glass design, but on Mac OS, it's not really liquid. There's not like a lot of see-through stuff because there's not as much verticality in Mac OS, and you're not touching it and rotating the screen, so there's just less dynamism in the experience. But I will say that, like, for a windowing system where you're dragging around windows, the fact that the sidebars now are windows on top of windows, it is weird because grabbing the top of the window is the same functionally as grabbing the top of the under window. And when you resize them, they both resize together. but you can't separate them. Like, what if I want to take the window on top, the sidebar window, and pull it over and use it like a palette? Well, I can't do that. So it's like not functionally another window. It's really just concentricity. They just wanted all the round rects to match up. And so that to me does seem like evidence that like they're leaning too far into the visual purity of what they want, because just functionally it seems pretty dumb. It seems like it should just be a sidebar. It should be a drawer or slide in and out or something. The fact that there's a zero dynamism in the movement of these things is very weird. But otherwise, I don't know. Everything looks a little new. Fresh coat of paint. One of the things, maybe my favorite thing, is they brought back after many, many years, or maybe I'm just remembering what it was like to use Windows in 2002 before I switched to the Mac. If you are resizing a window and you are at the bottom edge or the right edge, you will actually get a icon on your mouse that just shows the up down vertical arrows and the left right vertical arrows, and that's actually kind of nice. I don't know why I like that, but I like it. And thus concludes all of my beta impressions. I have not set up a new persona. I will try that. When I feel like I'm having a good hair day, I will let it scan me one more time, and we'll see just how well it gets my receding hairline. And I also have not tried the widgets because I like uncluttered walls, and I'm not super excited about plastering a bunch of movie posters and clocks around the house. But I'll give it a shot. I'll give it a whirl when I'm bored. If I ever experience boredom, that's the first thing I'll do. This isn't part of the betas, but the Sky app is also recently announced. People who made Workflow, which was bought by Apple and quickly turned into Shortcuts, they left Apple, started a new company called Software Application Software Inc. or something. Software Application Incorporated. I don't know. They left, started a company. They have a new app called Sky, and it looks a lot like the updated Spotlight, but just even more AI-y, where you type it in and then it kind of chunks together, really, really tightly integrated steps of like, everyone's always using the calendar creation event as like their primary demo because everyone hates making calendar events because the UI for them is always garbage. It looks pretty slick. I haven't used it, but it looks pretty slick. It looks like a thing that should just be part of the system. The new Spotlight looks close enough to it that I wouldn't be surprised if they really struggle to get much traction here. But if you look at that new Spotlight and you're just like, I just wish it was like 20% more, check out Sky. iPad, I'm not on the beta yet, but the new windowing system in Vision OS, in XOS 26, the new windowing system, it looks like an improvement in every way. And you may have heard this if you follow Apple news, but like slide over is gone. And slide over was like the thing that I used. The only multitasking I actually used on my iPad in the evening is like I use it every day to play video. I watch video. I watch TV shows on my iPad. That's why I got the bigger one, the OLED one. It looks really nice. I have it up, mounted to the left of my view while I play video games. So I can half watch a show and half play a video game, which is apparently just what I want to do. Slide over is like, I could just use my finger and just swipe just a little bit and just take a peek at my mail or take a peek at, messages or whatever, make sure nothing happened, and then slide it back. And that way it's just like one motion where it's like finger touch, drag towards, see no blue dots, drag away. And then I be about my business. And I never leaving full screen, never pausing the video, never changing focus. That's gone. And that was the only useful thing about iPad multitasking. So I get why it's gone. It was the first piece of multitasking that was ever added to iPad OS. I'm sure that the code was clunky. I'm sure the new windowing system. I hope they bring it back because it was handy to be able to do that. And the new system doesn't let you do that. In entertainment news, there's a Street Fighter movie in the works because that's never gone poorly before, but now that video game stuff is popular again, and like video game adaptations are suddenly doing really well. Everyone's looking at the Mario movie and Sonic having made billions of dollars. So we got the serious stuff, like the prestige stuff with like The Last of Us and the Fallout series being huge. Now the E-rated stuff is doing really well. I guess we're going to find out how are the T-rated games going to fare, because Street Fighter is getting another movie. And the first news about this that I read is that 50 Cent is playing Balrog, who I believe, yeah, was he a prize fighter? I think he's a boxer, right? Like a Vegas boxer, I want to say. So he's playing Balrog. And then Jason Momoa is Blanca. And, you know, like Jason Momoa, I wouldn't say he's like an A+ lister. A- lister? I don't know. Like he's a big deal. But if I'm Jason Momoa, like I think like if you know who Blanca is, if you played Street Fighter 2, Blanca, he's a green man. He's just green. He's got a flash of red hair. Doesn't speak English as far as I can say. Like, I don't know. Like, not a lot of character depth there. Has very ripped shorts and otherwise no clothing. And he's a very green man. He's just super green. And if there's two Blancas, one of them is sort of like lime green and one of them is dark green, or even yellowish, depending on what kind of CRT television you have in 1993. And Blanca's signature move, if you were just like a button masher, like the Searles household, was you could just crouch down and mash on a button and then be electric. And anyone who tried to touch you or jump on you, it was hard to counter. It was hard to defeat on its own. You could just stand there and be electric all day and antagonize whoever you're playing against until time ran out. I assume that's all he's going to do in the movie. And if that's all he does in the movie, then I think that's a great movie that's worth making. And I think almost anything else that they can do with that character would be bad. So don't call it a prediction, but if they're looking for notes, I'm actually friends with a movie studio producer. Maybe I can get an intro and save this thing. In terms of games to look forward to, by the way, if you like action adventure games, if you like role-playing games where your decisions kind of matter, if you like looting shit and upgrading things, if you like leveling up, if you like witty writing or writing that thinks it's witty, if these are things you like, if you like sci-fi, you might have played Bethesda's game Starfield thinking you were going to get any of those things and then suffered through it and got to the end and been like, all right. And that same year, you might have played The Outer Worlds by Obsidian, which is kind of like, good Bethesda these days. And for a lot of reasons. The co-founders from Black Isle, like the original Fallout, like they're OGs. So Obsidian knows what they're doing. But they made a game called Outer Worlds. It was sci-fi. It was funny. It was like a 3-act structure or whatever. And the first act clearly had all the budget in it and was really fucking good. And then the game sort of petered out. Lack of content, structure. And you learn in hindsight, like there were comments that were like, oh, if only we had the money to like we're so glad Microsoft could buy us so that we could even get this out the door. Like they had a separate publishing agreement pre-existing for the distribution of that game, I think through 2K, but like they got it out the door. And it was clear that because of budget constraints, it wasn't the game they wanted to make. And even then, a lot of people loved it. I played to the end and I was like, yeah, it did fall apart at the end. And I'm still glad I did it because it hit a lot of these notes in a way that felt impactful. And especially coming off the game Avowed, which I am still somehow fucking playing. My playtime literally says 4 days, which means 24 times 4 hours of my human existence. I wouldn't say I've been playing this game, but this game has been on. So I've been playing the shit out of Avowed. I'm basically 100%ing it. Like as I go, I'm just looting every single corner of the map. I don't know why, to upgrade the shit out of all my shit. and I'm saving all the story quests for last. And yeah, people are talking about how that's a short game. Like, it's a really long fucking game if you let it be. I'll tell you that. So I'm still working through that. That's these guys, and apparently Outer Worlds 2 is like a much bigger game than that. So Outer Worlds 2 coming out this fall. Great news for Microsoft and like the Xbox division, because like they've really hit their stride. We'll see whether or not it's because they finally got their shit together, or whether just the stars aligned and they happen to have a whole bunch of post-COVID releases all kind of like line up right next to each other with Indiana Jones and Avowed and this. But hey, I'm here for it. So as soon as I finish Avowed, hopefully I have time for something else. But Outer Worlds 2 looks pretty good. Why am I talking about Outer Worlds 2? Because the news item here is that they did a deep dive 30-minute video at the end of the Xbox Showcase event. If you're a gamer, you probably already heard of this. I strongly encourage you to go watch the video. It's a little joke cringy because they got not Adam Scott, the other smartass from Parks and Rec, the one who plays Sonic. I don't remember his name. Like, they got that asshole to pretend to be like a contractor or an employee to kind of like joke his way through the structure of this video, and that's a little cringy. There are moments that are all right, but like when you see that team and how they talk and how they gel, like you see a lot of like good elements of. You could imagine a day at work at this company, and you could understand that this is how you want a mid-sized developer that's juggling multiple projects at once. That's the vibe I would be hoping to hear. And so, apart from all the things that they showed off about the game and the mechanics and what the game is, and this faction believes in this because of that, which I could care fewer fucks about, maybe. But seeing how people interact and how they talked about the work, and how grateful they are for the opportunity to do what they're doing, that was really encouraging. I think this game is going to be good. So that is a prediction. Looking forward to it. Worth a watch if you are into those kinds of games. Now, speaking of games, Death Stranding 2, as if Death is out there and then we stranded it. The first game I tried playing, it's like a delivery man game, but also real spooky. I don't really like spooky games, and I find delivery games boring after a certain point. The story was just weird, and as I played it, getting weirder, and then I skipped ahead and watched a YouTube of how it ends, and I was like, I'm kind of glad I saved myself the trouble. This is too far. Clearly, Kojima, he works better with an editor, or now that he has no boss, this is maybe a little further afield than I would view as entertainment. And he wants to be an auteur, so he's doing media because Death Stranding 2's out. And I don't know if somebody asked him in Japan, why do you not use any Japanese actors in your Japanese video game? But his story, and I'm going to link to this, his story was, well, the thing is, Asian people have this beautiful skin. And now he doesn't talk about skincare, although skincare is a part of it, and so is avoiding the sun, which Asian people tend to do. And one of the many reasons they tend to do that is fucking, Western white standards of beauty and all this sort of post-colonial hegemony and cultural dominance. Set aside the reasons. He's like, Asian people have beautiful skin that's free of defect and impurity. And when you convert using the technology that they've built, when you convert that into a digital actor, right? Because he does a lot of motion capture and stuff, it just looks fake and plasticky and not realistic. And we've heard in the past, like one of the things that makes, digital actors or one of the ways you defeat the uncanny valley in computer animation is by adding realistic imperfections, freckles beneath the skin, different types of wrinkles. When, you pull up a mask and your nose, moves. All those little tiny cues tell our brains like, that person's real. And wait, no, they're not, because there's this one little lack of imperfection there. So I get what he's saying. But that dude just can't shut up. So anyway, he says basically the reason that I use Western actors in my movies and or in my games is because y'all are ugly and your skin just looks like a fucking minefield, and there's a lot for me to work with to make this look realistic because of all of your, cracked ass terrible skincare and ugliness. So then we'll get to it, but yeah, that guy knows how to do an interview. We're gonna end on some good news. Comcast. That's probably a phrase no one has ever used before. End on some good news, and then start with Comcast. Comcast has lost customers. I know people who have moved out of their home to buy a different home because they had Comcast as their only ISP available. And they were famously the only ones enforcing bandwidth limits. Of course, not in the Northeast, because in the Northeast, where they compete with Verizon Fios, the fiber internet service, they had real competition. And so they couldn't enforce the bandwidth limits. But in other parts of the country, first they threatened, and then they started enforcing and make you pay for using more than, say, a terabyte of data a month. Well, they're saying all their new plans are unlimited data. They got rid of the caps. And then you ask why. And this Ars Technical Link is Comcast themselves are very clear. It's like, yes, we are losing customers, and this is a sign of our desperation. Customers want predictable, and transparent pricing. So if you're in a Comcast zone and you haven't heard that news, the good news, there you go. That you can stop, you can close your Starlink shopping cart if that's your only option where you live. So that's something to celebrate. Now let's recommend some shit to watch and read and play games as we prepare to part ways. There's a movie called Pig. It came out in 2021. I think it's streaming on Netflix. I paid for it. I wanted to make a point of paying for it because some website had like a long scene that got put up on YouTube, and I was like, that is a very, very good scene. And the whole movie is about Nick Cage being a chef trying to get back his pig, his truffle hunting pig. Watched it with Becky. Great movie. Short version, he loses the pig. Pig gets taken away. And Becky looked at that and she's like, is this just John Wick, but Nick Cage and a pig? And I was like, maybe. And the answer is, yeah, kind of is. Except instead of violence to solve his problems, Nick Cage just stares at people and scares them. Great movie. Really, really well executed. From a written and directed by first-time director, was very impressive. Worth watching. Less excited about Moana 2. We watched it last night. The first Moana was good, for what it is. Very good. Great soundtrack, decent story beats. Was, well animated. The second one, kind of like Frozen 2, was just like not whatever the magic was the first time around. This feels very cash in and perfunctory, and weirdly it's like you got all this time to make songs. Just like make happy songs. Just make some happy songs. Fuck. Just do it. Just do the thing. The best song in Moana 2 is when they replayed the song from the first one at the end of the movie. I'm glad I watched it so that I don't have to think, should I watch that anymore? Because now I have the answer. After we watched it, we watched Lava, the 2014 Pixar short. That's also, Polynesia, Pacific Islands. And then cried a lot because it's really good and moving, and it's way better than Moana or Moana 2. Definitely Moana 2. So anyway, that was a good palate cleanser. Check out Lava if you somehow have not watched it. It's back when Pixar was reliably good at making things. I hear that their new movie is a bomb. Wait, bombed. I've already forgotten what it was called because they didn't market it. This is also several weeks out of date now, but there's a Witcher 4 demo. So if you the video games, Witcher 1, 2, 3, CD Projekt Red, these are all words. Witcher 4 coming out. You play as a girl, which based on recent history of AAA video games means that people are going to lose their fucking shit about it and then review bomb it, and then the company's going to go out of business. Or get bought by China, like Ubisoft did when they made a Star Wars game where you were a girl, and after making an Assassin's Creed where you were a girl. Like, 2 in a row, man. You can't do that. Or a Black Samurai. Also, not okay. A lot of very offended white boys got mad because think of the lack of Japanese ass samurai representation. They were just being allies to their Japanese brethren. Fuck's sake. So yeah, Witcher 4 coming out, gonna have a girl. I don't know. Like if they're sexy enough, then apparently they get a pass, because these guys love playing games with like anime sexy girls with the jiggle physics. But if they're not sufficiently sexy enough, then it confuses them at a deep level to be playing as a girl in a game. So we'll see if Witcher 4 manages to toe the line just right. Dial in the sexy just enough to keep the boys from review bombing them. But anyway, this demo, great video. Like what they're showing off in Unreal Engine 5, which CD Projekt Red has switched to from their own in-house engine, is truly remarkable. And Epic is using it as an example of what their engine is capable of. So it looks really, really good. Lots of if you're interested in the state of the art in video game engine stuff, check this out. Relatedly similar, Death Stranding 2, the aforementioned off-putting game that I don't want to play, but nevertheless looks really cool because of how pockmarked all of the skin is on its Western actors. They use an engine called the Guerrilla Engine from Guerrilla Games. I think it's called the Guerrilla Engine. Whatever Guerrilla Games' engine is. So if you've played the Horizon West games, it's that, or Killzone, it's their in-house game engine. And as gaming has become more complicated and AAA games have become more expensive, the cost and the burden of maintaining a game engine has gotten to be just absolutely ludicrous. So we're entering an era now where the barrier of entry to creating a game engine is so high, we might be left with just 5 or 6 left total. I'm not going to list them, but it would be very difficult if you were just starting a AAA game tomorrow to decide to use anything other than Unreal Engine 5. And one suspects that 10 years from now, it's going to be even harder still. But the reason why you would want to choose a different game engine, other than the fact that the developer tools are different, is that they make different trade-offs, and they all have kind of different signature looks. Because down to how I multiply these two matrices together to create the illusion of images, to how I implement all of these different APIs, the standard DirectX and OpenGL APIs or Vulkan APIs that we use to interface with, application developers who are coding against the GPU, like how I leverage all those APIs to accomplish things, creates different strengths and weaknesses. And Digital Foundry as a website / YouTube channel, they have become the gold standard for evaluating the visual fidelity of games. So if you care about this shit, you are already aware of DF, I am sure. And sometimes their videos are a little bit too chatty and don't really give you the vibe of the game itself. Let the game speak for itself, so to speak. But because Death Stranding is such a mood piece, I actually found this 30-minute video of John Lindemann, who's great, like that guy a lot. Actually, he and I were posting together on NeoGAF like 20 fucking years ago, all the goddamn time. His handle is Dark10x. So I wonder if he remembers me. I doubt it. I highly doubt it. Although I had an avatar a lot of people remembered. My avatar on that message board was Bill Gates giving Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson a hug like a close crop of that picture at the original Xbox unveiling in 2000. I don't know why I just shared that. Anyway, this video, 30-minute video, it actually does a really good job of explaining the Guerrilla Games engine and what's really good here, what's been advanced, how as an artist like and a director, the game uses those tools to create something really special from like an audio and a video perspective, and in both playable form as well as in the cutscenes. So if you're interested in this sort of stuff, the art of it all, as somebody who like loves both tool making and then seeing how those tools get used in practice, that liberal arts kind of quality, I think that video basically satiated all interest I had in actually buying and booting up the game, because I would have only played it for the atmospherics to kind of get a sense of like what's going on here technically. So check that out if you're a sicko like me. Over in TV land, I finally got over myself and realized Becky's not going to get interested in Andor season 1. I watched the first couple episodes with her after she committed to watch the first 3, and then it was clear I was pulling teeth, and I did not make her watch the third. She just doesn't like Star Wars as a setting, which is fair. I think Andor season 1 is one of the best seasons of television I've ever seen, and it happens to be Star Wars. In fact, you learn about the production of that show, and you can see that like the Tony Gilroy, who wrote and directed a lot of it, he went out of his way to insulate himself from what makes a lot of Star Wars shit bad. So season 2 comes around, and he's got all the big dick energy because it was the only critically acclaimed Star Wars thing in the whole post Disney acquisition. And this season, I'm about halfway through. Extremely good. 12 episodes. They cover a lot of ground. It's all of the events between season 1 and the movie Rogue One, which is a very good movie. So yeah, I don't know. I was talking to somebody who was very familiar with the production the other day, and I was kind of pumping them for information and being like, so is this a sign that somebody at Lucasfilm understands why this is good and they're going to replicate it? And he's like, unfortunately, it sounds like it's more like this was just a one-off aberration where this guy was able to put up with the Lucasfilm Corporation just long enough to make this and speed run what would have been a 5-season show to kind of get out before they ruined it. So that's disappointing. But anyway, this is your notification that it's out. If you didn't catch it all 12 episodes have been aired, whatever that means now. I guess Wi-Fi is a thing, so technically we are airing TV shows again. Also on TV, and all episodes not being out because I ran into the last one. I was like, that was unsatisfying, and then realized it's still tied up in like linear broadcast, is Wrexham. Welcome to Wrexham, season 4. It's still good. Every season of that show is good. I thought 3 was a little weak. 4 seems better than 3. Recommend it. Becky started watching it with me, which basically absolutely voraciously consuming season 1 of the thing. She really likes Ted Lasso a lot. She recently visited Richmond because she's such a big Ted Lasso fan in wee England. And I was like, you probably would really like Welcome to Wrexham is like real life Ted Lasso, and Ryan Reynolds is funny, and there's the Rob guy who McElhenney, I want to say, like Always Sunny, the one with the Danny DeVito comedy. Yeah, good. So season 4 still good. I don't know. I had the idea is like Disney owns them, and every time I think of Welcome to Wrexham, I think of Wreck-It Ralph, and I would love for them to do a Wreck-It Ralph Wrexham mashup. So that's a free idea, Mr. Iger. Make that happen. Only non-media recommendation I got for you is this coffee maker. My brother has this coffee maker. He loves it. It's a Philips EP 4400 series. If that doesn't froth your loins, it will froth your milk. Because this is a storied coffee maker in the world of people who read and write posts about coffee makers on message boards. So Jeremy's had this thing for years. He loves it. He thinks it's one of the best appliances he's ever had. And he's been harassing me to have it because I've been swearing by a relatively shitty Ninja grind and brew, not even a grind and brew, just a drip coffee pot. And it makes it too strong or too weak, and it spilled a few times, and it's not that sophisticated. So I was like, okay, well, we'll try it out. So ordered the thing. It was on sale. I'm going to put the Amazon link in there. And if you want one of those coffee machines that kind of feels like you're in an airport lounge, right? And you just want to be able to fill it with water and fill it with beans and then like click espresso or click Americano and have stuff come out, and you like how it tastes when you're in the airport lounge, then this is probably for you in terms of affordability and maintenance. This is probably right in the wheelhouse of what you're looking for. The only weird thing about it is that the volumes of coffee it produces are quite small. Like if you use a real big ass America sized mug, I realize Philips is a European company. If you use a real America mug, like a Freedom mug, and you say, I want the largest Americano or coffee that you can produce, you will get less than half full. So you can 2x everything, as if the design is that like you have two little cups next to each spigot and then it pours two drinks. Most mugs in America are big enough that you could just 2x all of the, I don't know why. So I'm already doing that, which is a little bit of an edge case. And then I'm finding that the coffee is just like a little too watery, even on the strongest setting. So then I have to add a ristretto shot. And so I'm finding myself customizing these drinks. So now like making a coffee is quite time consuming and also a lot of button presses. So I'm not blown away, but I think the real thing that I realized I don't love about it is that, so I don't drink Woodford Reserve anymore. Woodford Reserve is a very serviceable bourbon. It's a good whiskey. You want a whiskey, Woodford Reserve? You could do a lot worse. The problem is that on Delta first class, business class, Woodford Reserve is their go-to whiskey offering. And so over the years and years of business travel, because once you get status, you're in a situation to get free drinks a lot on planes. They want to put everybody to sleep. You're like, all right, Woodford Reserve time. And so I've drank so much Woodford Reserve, always in the context of being on a business trip that I don't want to be on, or on a plane that I don't like being on, that I want to be home or somewhere else, that I don't drink it anymore. If it's on offer, if it's like on a menu, I will not order it, because I take a whiff of Woodford, I take a sip of it, and I'm instantly transported to uncomfortable flight delays, all that crap, right? I don't think that liquor companies think very hard about this, but whatever. So when I first started using this coffee machine and poured my first cup and had my first sip, I was like immediately transported to the Delta Lounge, full of screaming babies and not a place to sit down and messes on the floor. And that's not the vibe I'm going for when I'm trying to relax in the morning. So I'm going to give it at least a week. We got 30 days to try this thing. I know it's a weak sauce recommendation. I'm glad it's working for him. I'm just not sure I'm there. Not sure I'm there yet. And that concludes all the recommendations. And so now our final segment, it's you either write into this podcast or you don't.
You've got mail.
And this week it was you don't. Did not get a lot of email this week. Remember, people don't write in. Like people don't write you a note. Here I am talking like an idiot for 3 hours into the void, mostly to solve my own shit. Deep down, I just got stuff that's burbling up anyway. May as well put a camera on me. And you, if you consume it and you don't write in, come on, be a buddy. Just say, hey, just give me a stupid little. I got one email. That's a simple one line. Here's a great example of what I'm looking for. If you write into podcast@searles.co. And if you don't want to write into that email, you could write to searles@gmail. You could write justin@searles.co. You could write whatever fucking garbage bullshit you want at searles.co, and it will come to me because I have a catch-all address. Spoiler alert. Example of a very short email. Sean writes, if you have to choose one, would you rather have 3 weak drinks or 1 too strong drink? So 3 too weak drinks, 3 drinks that are mixed too weakly. So imagine the sugar to alcohol ratio is off. Or 1 drink that's too strong, like a day ender. Of course, the correct answer is 2 normal fucking drinks. That's my ideal. That's my go-to. 2 normal drinks is real nice. 2 good drinks, please. I think before I was more nowadays I'm tracking like, you know, my macros, my calorie input and output, knowing that those weak drinks, no matter what's in them that isn't alcohol, unless it's literally like Coke Zero or a sugar-free ginger ale, there's going to be sugar and calories in those drinks. And so 3 weak drinks is like a lot of empty calories. And for that reason, I would probably say 1 strong drink. And then, because if I had to choose, I would absolutely choose the strong drink. And then I would think, I am going to have self-control and I'm going to sip this and drink it slowly. Or maybe even have another glass off to the side of water and drink the water. And then in reality, what I will do 100% of the time is I will drink that too strong of a drink way too fucking fast and not touch the water until I'm already pretty tipsy. So that's the answer to that question. Thank you. Thank you for writing, Sean. Jason writes in, do you prune your photos? I take a lot of photos, but not necessarily good ones. I feel like I should prune my photos a bit after returning from trips, especially when there are dozens of effectively the same photo. But I don't have a good eye to tell which ones I should keep. Do you bother? Or perhaps you're more judicious in the moment than I am, and you don't have as many redundant photos. Great question, Jason. Now, whether you have a good eye or not for your photos, that's not, I don't think, the operative thing here. I think Apple originally had in mind that people would be all up in their camera roll and not camera roll, but even like on iPhoto, right? Like on the Mac, and like carefully coifing all of their library and really being precious about it. And back then you were, because you only had so many pictures. But now that we're taking tens of thousands of pictures a year, you know, if you're going to spend the time editing the thing, like that's just a lot. That's a huge time commitment. And that's time not spent enjoying and looking at them after either. Right. So if I had kids, I would care more, but honestly, no. Cause like what I use it for is just to capture as much fucking shit as possible. Like every time I have the thought, hey, I could take a picture of this, unless I'm going to disturb the moment, right? Unless it would be like disruptive to, like I'm having a great conversation, introducing a camera right in that moment would be disruptive. That would be bad. But like in general, I just want to capture as much as I can, pay for as much data as I need, and then we'll sort it out later when I'm old and sad, right? Like when the person I'm with is dead, I'll have lots of good stuff for their slideshow at the funeral, which that hits too close to home and is too recent of a reference. Oops. Yeah, it sucks. Anyway, no, I don't prune. I kind of have the same policy as this shit, right? Like if we've learned anything, it's that AI has gotten very good at learning from gigantic, massive data sets. So if I can give it lots and lots of pictures and lots of videos, maybe we get to an end game where I've recorded so many selfie cameras of myself talking to my phone, which I think I did 110 while I was in Japan, and I didn't release any of them. Some of them are pretty good, by the way. Most of them are not very good, but some of them are pretty good. Like I'm doing that in part to try to get better at that form, to understand how to do a good talking in a camera one-on-one 60-second limit. But I'm also doing it because someday there's going to be some program where I can just say, hey, generate a video of Justin saying this shit. Here's the script, right? So I could have one AI generate a script and the other AI generate the 60-second video. And then I can just go and float on the pool, I guess. Um, if that's the end game, right? Of being able to like have AI, now you don't want to generate images of yourself because you're insufficiently vain, then you could use it for like search has gotten very good. You could use it for other things. Like, I don't know, man. Like the more that our computers understand, the more data we feed our computers, the more that they're able to do for us. Even if it's also like the more advertisers are able to target you and all these other things if you choose to engage in social media land. Um, so yeah, I like for example, I have a dental device, like a retainer kind of thing that I wear every night. It's called a bite plane, and my dentist recommended one when he looked at my teeth and said, "All you have are nubbins because you clench your jaw all day." And I was like, "Isn't that how we're supposed to walk around all day with a clenched jaw?" And he's like, "No, actually, you're supposed to just like let your jaw hang inside your mouth." And I was like, "Weird." And so then I had to learn as a 33-year-old man how to walk around with just my jaw hanging out. It was literally, it felt like I had my shorts around my knees. I didn't know people were walking around with their jaw not in a clenched position. I literally clenched my jaw for the first 33 fucking years of my life. As a result, I had no cuspids left. All of my teeth were just sanded down to nubbins, which is why whenever I had any dental work done, like a cavity, it's like they couldn't adjust my bite. Sort of just they wouldn't just need to sand it down, I guess. So I would end up with these terrible, like my bite wouldn't feel right. And his solution was to like drill out new tops of all the teeth, and it was like 30 fucking visits. Unfortunately, he was just maybe a 300-meter walk from our house. So it was fortuitous that I lived next to my dentist that close in Columbus. All that to say, I've got this bite plane, and they get gross, because mouths are biology, and I don't brush my tongue. I got an ultrasonic cleaner, like a super high end, not a AA battery, but you plug it into the fucking wall cleaner. And my hope was it was going to be as good as like a UV hard one, like you take it to the dental office, it comes back, and this thing's like fucking transparent. I want that. And so I was hoping to see how good it could go, and I ran it through like 7 or 8 times, hoping like eventually it would get back to like perfectly transparent, and it did not. But I took like fucking 4K videos of every time me holding it so that I could compare before and after. It's like, is it better or worse? How many until it gets like, where's the point of diminishing returns on cleaning this fucking thing? That is, every picture you take is like 24 fucking megabytes. Like those little videos, the photos I took and stuff, did I go back and delete those and clean them up? Even though you scroll past, it's kind of disgusting and it's probably like 40 fucking files now. I don't know. Like, I should, but also I'm busy. As you can see, I'm a very busy man doing busy man stuff here. Yeah. So I don't bother, is I guess the answer to your question. And I would encourage you to not care. I would encourage you just to pay for the highest tier of storage. And because the worst thing you could do is you could filter this shit out, start deleting videos, get old, and then be like, I wish I had more photos of this person. I wish I had more candid shots of so-and-so. I wish I remembered what they looked like in this particular era. Not just straight on the face, not just smiling at the camera, but an off angle, or in a candid moment, or an accidental video. Like, the cost of regret is going to be way higher than the cost of storage. And if you want to carefully curate your shit, go for it, but create an album. Don't delete stuff. Create some other library where, and some people do this. And part of the reason some people even have like a separate Adobe Lightroom subscription, or even use a separate camera, is so that they can have separately that like library life, that separate experience of every image here is here on purpose. But increasingly, thanks to machine learning, and this is the thing it's really good at, is like surfacing good photos and downranking bad videos and photos. And so I think Apple has deemed it, that's their job. That's the photos. So the camera team's job, help you take as good a picture as you can, as fast as you can, no nonsense. The photos team job is like, show you the good pictures, don't show you the bad ones. And that's why they unified the interface and got rid of the tabs, because they wanted more people to see all the cool machine learning stuff happening. And people were freaking out about it, and they just wanted to go back to their camera roll. So that's what I got to say about that. My voice hurts. I'm out of practice. So I'm not going to read this third one because it's about taxes. And that sounds complicated. Sorry. Wherever you are and whatever you're doing, it's an absolute pleasure to get to talk at you like this. If you listen to the end of these things, I don't know how many of you there are, because you don't write fucking emails. Write me an email. God damn it. No, but seriously, like, wherever you are, just like, I'm really glad that I get to do this. I have a lot of fun, staring at a camera, talking into a microphone, and getting to share stuff that's going on in my life, and having a non-zero number of people listen to it. So thank you for that. In this era, I don't know how you get more reach. Fortunately, I don't depend on it for anything. But if you know somebody who might like this program, let them know. Say, hey, I know this is weird. And don't try to go listen to version 1. Just hop on the bus. This breaking change guy, he talks about the stuff that we talk about. And, if you had to choose between the voices in your head and this man, this stranger, give it a shot. And maybe you'll like him. Or maybe you'll hate him. And maybe you'll hate him but want to listen anyway. And those are the best listeners, because they email me more. But seriously, folks, share this podcast maybe with somebody if you haven't, or pop into iTunes and give it a 5-star rating so that it looks like a real podcast, or write a review. Because right now I think my only written review is still like Becky being like, hey, I'm his wife, you should listen to this, which I appreciate, because it would have been sad if she not recommended it. But all that to say, that is my call to action. So the podcast is ending now, and the music will play. But if you share this with somebody, let me know. That'd be great. It would make my day.